Chapter 226. In the president's office of the Pleasure Group, the arrival of Su Meng surprised Ling Han very much. The position of the chief editor of Fengshang seemed to be very important, but in fact, the chief editor of Fengshang was flying all over the world for 360 days of 365 days in a year. He had very little time to come here. I heard that Yin Yin has been released from prison. I want to see her. Since Ji Xiaoye knew that Yi Huanyan had been released from prison, Su Meng certainly knew about it. There was a trace of vigilance in Ling Han's eyes. Just to see her? Su Meng blinked with a cunning look on his face. By the way, ask her if she is interested in being my assistant. Hearing this, Ling Han refused without thinking. No. Why? Su Meng glanced at him. He was not shocked by his momentum at all and retorted. After Sheng Anren's interference, you definitely don't want her to go back to work in the pleasure group now. She is a white-collar worker who is used to work. Do you want her to stay at home and be a housewife for you? She will be bored to death. She won't go to Fengshang. Don't you already have an assistant? Ling Han looked at Su Meng with a very firm attitude. Su Meng was anxious. Xiaoyu is going to lead a team to Zhoushan to collect wind this weekend. Do I have to find someone to replace her? I don't trust other people. Can you consider that I am borrowing from you? Ling Han's heart suddenly thumped as if he had thought of something. Last time in the villa of Jinjianjiwen, Yi Huanyan said before she was in a coma. It was Ji Xiaoye who suggested that she go out for a walk. She probably said that she was going to Zhoushan. Well, give me a definite answer whether you agree or not. What if I don't agree? Then I will go to the old lady. Su Meng smiled meaningfully. Hearing this, Ling Han's face darkened. He had not told his grandmother that Yi Huanyan had returned. Because of Yi Huanyan's imprisonment, his grandmother had been suppressing her anger and had been ignoring him for a long time. After a while, Ling Han's voice sounded in the office. It's not impossible for her to work, but she can only work with you until Ji Xiaoye comes back, at most a month. A month later, Yi Huanyan's pregnancy was about to show. He didn't want too many people to know about this. Moreover, he had already thought about it. A month later, he would let her stay at the seaside resort for a period of time and come back after the child was born. All right, it's settled then. Su Meng agreed readily. However, Ling Han stared at her thoughtfully for a while and sneered. Sister Su Meng, do you really lack an assistant? Or did someone ask you to take care of Yi Huanyan for a while? Su Meng still had a smile on her face. She said lightly, whether I lack an assistant or someone really asks me for help, since you have agreed, it means that even you think it's better for her to come out and work, right? Before Ling Han could refute, she added, and only in my place, we don't stick to one pattern. No matter what your record is, we only look at your ability to work. In this regard, Fengshang is more confident than pleasure. Ling Han frowned and said nothing more. If working in Fengshang could really make her feel a little better, and give up the idea of packing up and leaving him, he was willing to make this concession. It was just a little concession. After Su Meng left, he glanced at his mobile phone again. It had been a week, but there was still no news. That night, after all the people in the company had gotten off work, Ling Han left the office. After driving around the riverside, they finally arrived at the east gate of Jinjiang Park. It was already late at night, but there was still a faint light on the second floor of the villa in Jinjianjiwen. After hearing the movement next door, Yi Huanyan suddenly woke up. She thought it was a nightmare, so she shivered and shrank into the quilt. These days, she hadn't been sleeping well. She always felt that Ling Han would come back, and the fact that he came back could only make her feel scared. The revolving door slowly turned in a circle, and the sound of the wheels seemed particularly clear in the dark night. The sound of Ling Han's footsteps, and the smell on his body, became more and more obvious. This finally made her realize that this was not a nightmare, or rather, the things in her dream had all become real. In the nightmare, he took a knife, cut open her belly, and held out a bloody fetus. His bloodthirsty eyes cut her inch by inch from her body. He told her fiercely, Yi Huanyan, how can I let this bastard stay? She shivered all over. Her pale face was full of cold sweat. A pair of slightly cold hands wrapped around her from behind and pulled down her blanket. In a low voice he said, "Covering your head while sleeping is not good for breathing." His voice was clear, but there was not much malice. And then the action of lying beside her made Yi Huanyan absent-minded for a moment. She even thought that this was another imaginary dream. After being released from prison, it seemed that she could never distinguish between reality and dream. He breathed evenly in her ear. One of his hands reached into the quilt and touched her shoulder. Her entire body quivered as she shuddered. She was so nervous that she started to tremble. The hand seemed to hesitate for a moment, but still took her into his arms fiercely, completely ignoring the obvious rejection of her body. "From tomorrow on, you go to work in Fengshang. Su Meng needs an assistant." His voice sounded in her ear. Every word was very clear. Yi Huanyan curled up quietly in his arms. She didn't dare to move, for fear that she would annoy him accidentally. She was not afraid before, but now she had a baby in her belly. "Okay." She nodded. There was no reaction on her face. She was neither sad nor happy. Ling Han was not satisfied with this reaction. He asked her to go to Fengshang to relax. If she didn't want to go, it would be counterproductive. This was not what he wanted. He frowned. He circled her neck with one hand and forced her to turn over. Then he held her in his arms. He put his chin against her forehead and said in a low voice, "If you don't want to go, you can stay at home and rest. You cannot work. No one is forcing you." I can do it." Her voice was a little muffled and trembling. She was afraid of him. The fear was very clear. Looking at the trembling eyelashes and the condensed mist in her eyes, Ling Han suddenly felt a little unhappy. He was about to lose his temper, but when he saw the bruise on her neck that had not disappeared, the displeasure in his heart became very discouraged. "That's it. Let's talk about it tomorrow." He sighed as if he had accepted his fate. Closing his eyes, he couldn't help holding her more tightly in his arms. But his lower body clearly felt that she was stubbornly trying to keep her lower abdomen away from him with her hands. At that time, a thought that surprised him flashed in his mind. How good it would be if the child was really his. This night, Yi Huanyan didn't sleep well, especially in the first half of the night. She couldn't figure out Ling Han's unpredictable temper. She didn't know when he would suddenly attack again. In addition to being frightened, she had all kinds of nightmares repeatedly at night. In a daze, she seemed to feel a pair of hands gently stroking and patting her back, gradually calming her down. Chapter 227. Early the next morning, Ling Han only felt a light movement in his arms. He was a light sleeper, but he just froze for a moment without opening his eyes. He only felt that after the person in his arms got up, the quilt became a little colder inexplicably, until Yi Huanyan went into the bathroom. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at the faint figure behind the frosted door of the bathroom. He was lost in thought. Not long after, Yi Huanyan gently opened the door of the bathroom, changed her clothes, stayed by the bed for a while, and finally left the room. In fact, it was easy for Yi Huanyan to go to work again. This house was too boring. Every day after eating 3 meals at home, she waited for a person who she didn't know when to come back with a mood. For her, it was like a long torture. Yi Huanyan left in a hurry. It seemed that she was afraid that Ling Han would regret. She didn't even eat breakfast and went out in a hurry. Ling Ling chased her to the door and put the sandwich into her hand. When she turned around, she found that Ling Han was standing at the door of the bedroom on the second floor. He had turned around and went to the bedroom, but it was obvious that he just stood at the door behind the stairs. But he didn't make any sound. After going out, Yi Huanyan habitually took the bus to the subway. When she got off the subway, she looked at the place where she got off, and suddenly found that she got off at the wrong station. She habitually went to the subway near the pleasure group to get off, but today she should go to Fengshang to report. Standing at the subway exit, she stared at the office building in the distance for a while. Her mood was a little complicated. If the phone didn't ring, she didn't know how long she would be absent-minded. It was Su Meng calling and asking where she was. Yi Huanyan was a little flattered. She had to be called by her boss to ask where she was when she went to work. This kind of care was not a good thing for her. "I'm on the subway. It will take about 10 minutes to get to the company. Sister Su Meng, is there anything urgent?" On the phone, Su Meng's voice was very soft. Nothing urgent. I was going to wait for you in the company, but I had something to do last night, so I had to catch a flight at the last minute. I'm in Hujiang now, so you have to go to the company alone. I'm afraid that you won't get used to it. So I remind you that someone will arrange your work when you arrive at the company. As soon as she heard that Su Meng was not in the company, Yi Huanyan breathed a sigh of relief. A tall tree attracts the wind. As soon as he entered the company, he was backed by the boss. But he was so timid that it made others feel uncomfortable. Although Su Meng left, he arranged his secretary to arrange work for Yi Huanyan. The secretary named Kylie had a very good figure. She walked as if she was flying in a pair of 12-centimeter high heels. When she saw Yi Huanyan, she looked her up and down. Miss Yi, although Sister Su Meng directly transferred you to the company, I still have to say what I should say. Yi Huanyan was slightly taken aback. This was the first time she had seen a secretary who didn't beat around the bush like Carrie. This was very much in line with Feng Shang's style of doing things. Simple, straightforward, and efficient. Go ahead. Yi Huanyan nodded. Here's the thing. For the overall reputation of Feng Shang, we require that the heel of all female employees should not be lower than 8 centimeters. Unless you are as tall as a model, flat shoes are not allowed in our company. This is the company's constitution. While speaking, her eyes fell on Yi Huanyan's feet. This pair of gray velvet bean shoes had no heel at all. It was equivalent to stepping on the ground barefoot. Yi Huanyan hesitated for a while. I didn't bring my high heels today. I will be careful when I come tomorrow. No need. In order to prevent such an accident from happening, there are high heels in the company's cloakroom. Come with me. With a calm expression, Kylie led Yi Huanyan into the cloakroom. She selected a pair of red high heels with a black surface and red soles, and handed them to Yi Huanyan. 37.5, right? Yi Huanyan took the high heels and looked at her in surprise. You can tell at a glance? This is my job. It's an occupational disease. I'm sorry, Miss Yi. Kylie deserved to be the chief secretary beside Su Meng. Her eyes were almost like a high-intelligence scanner. Perhaps from the moment Yi Huanyan walked into her sight, Kylie's eyes had analyzed all the clothes and accessories that could be seen by the naked eye. Do I also need to practice like this? Yi Huanyan looked a little nervous. If she had known it earlier, she would have reconsidered Su Meng's suggestion of letting her work here. After all, different professions were worlds apart. No, Kylie smiled slightly. Before the chief editor left, he told us that Miss Ye's work is different from ours. In view of your previous work experience, we all think that it is more appropriate to let you do the coordination and communication work between artists. Communication between artists? Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. Yes, follow me to the studio first. Speaking of the studio, Yi Huanyan's face couldn't help but become a little stiff. She couldn't help clenching her fingers, adjusting her breath, and then braced herself to follow her. In the studio of Feng Shang, the cover of the latest issue of the magazine was being shot. After arriving at the studio, looking at the woman standing in front of the white curtain, Yi Huanyan couldn't help but exclaim, "L.V. Shah?" Kylie nodded. It's not easy to invite L.V. Shah to shoot the Valentine's Day special issue this time. L.V. Shah was the first batch of international supermodels to go abroad in China. She was definitely one of the top female models in China. It was because of her very oriental face that she could make a name for herself on the international tea stage. Yi Huanyan stared blankly at the tall beauty standing or sitting next to the wooden chair in the middle of the white curtain. Only then did she realize what the saying "beauty is in the bones, not the skin" meant. Appearance was beauty, and the woman in front of her exuded a kind of charm from her bones. After a round of shooting, L.V. Shah, who was wearing a thin red feather coat, came down from the curtain. She took a glass of water from someone who seemed to be an assistant, and glanced at Yi Huanyan. First, she nodded to Kylie. Then her eyes lingered on Yi Huanyan for a few seconds before naturally looking away. Kylie directly brought Yi Huanyan over, and walked in front of L.V. Shah, to introduce Yi Huanyan to her. Miss L.V. Shah, Miss Yi will be in charge of the shooting for the next 2 days. If you have any questions, just communicate with Miss Yi. LV Shah raised her head and glanced at Yi Huanyan. Her expression was cold, and she did not say anything. However, the female agent frowned and sized up Yi Huanyan. I've never seen this Miss Yi before. Who is she? Our chief editor's right-hand assistant, Kylie quickly answered. Although the female agent was a little suspicious, she did not ask any more questions. Yi Huanyan used to frequent Fengshang, so she was more or less familiar with the people here. Kylie also introduced her to the on-site dispatchers, so she was quite familiar with the things here. That's the general situation. Call me if you have any questions. I'll be upstairs. After that, Kylie left the studio. Yi Huanyan took a deep breath. Just as she was about to get back to work, she saw a familiar figure standing in the direction of the bathroom, staring at her blankly. Yin Yan. Chapter 228. His handsome eyebrows were full of surprise, and his tall figure made people unable to move their eyes away. He was wearing a sapphire blue casual suit with sequins inlaid on his chest. When he walked towards her, those sequins constantly reflected colorful lights under the light. Yi Huanyan did not expect that Su Nianhua would be here. It seemed that Su Meng did not know that she and Su Nianhua knew each other, so this should not be a deliberate arrangement. She thought that Carrie just said that the shooting of this issue was a special issue for Valentine's Day. Presumably, Su Nianhua and LV Shah would be partners in this issue. Just hearing their names, she felt that they were very attractive. Yin Yan, I heard that you were out, but I haven't had a chance to see you. Su Nianhua stuttered a sentence, and it seemed that he wanted to say something but stopped. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a moment, and then she pulled out a relatively polite and gentle smile and nodded at him. Nothing. It's all over. I am very happy to see you again. Su Nianhua's eyes were full of indescribable emotions. It seemed that he had a lot to say, but it was difficult for him to say it. But when the words came to his mouth, he only said, "Me too." The two people didn't talk much when they heard the photographer shouting that they were ready to shoot. Yi Huanyan only felt that LV Shah glanced in her direction, and her eyes were a little gloomy. She didn't know the reason. During the shooting, LV Shah wore a wine-red bathrobe and faced Su Nianhua. She sat on his lap in a bold posture. There was a blower beside her blowing the bathrobe on LV Shah, revealing her slender legs. The picture was very attractive. However, because Yi Huanyan was present, Su Nianhua couldn't get into the mood for a long time. He was very uncomfortable with LV Shah's professional shooting, and he faintly resisted it. After taking dozens of photos, the photographer waved his hand and reminded him, "Brother Hua, relax a little. Don't be too nervous. Also, don't put both hands on the chair. It's best to put both hands on Shasha's waist. It's more natural." Su Nianhua nodded and took a deep breath. He couldn't help but look in Yi Huanyan's direction. His actions naturally fell into LV Shah's sight. A faint sullen expression appeared on her cold face. No woman would like a man who had no attention in front of her, especially a woman like LV Shah. She was in a bad mood recently. It was not easy for her to find a man she liked, but she could not keep him. Now, she was just a little interested in this Su Nianhua, but this man's attention was not on her. He was truly vexed. When they were filming again, she deliberately moved closer to Su Nianhua's chin. A pair of soft hands reached into his half-open shirt, and her nails gently slid across his chest. Su Nianhua's eyes flashed with a trace of shock. After changing his position, he held LV Shah's hand and said in a low voice, "What are you doing?" LV Shah curved her red lips, but her eyes were cold. "I'm helping you focus." Su Nianhua was slightly stunned and looked a little unhappy. This woman's possessiveness was unusually strong. After the first round of filming, although Su Nianhua was not in the right state, the photographer still captured a few good images. During the break, the stage supervisor was responsible for the artists and the staff's lunch. They were going to have lunch after the second round of filming. Not long after, the stage supervisor in charge of logistics ran to Yi Huanyan with a troubled expression. "Miss Yi, look at this." What was handed to Yi Huanyan was a lunch list. Su Nianhua had ordered 2 simple side dishes, a salad and a soup. It looked very simple, But it was clearly not Su Nianhua's that made the stage supervisor so troubled. It was LV Shah's lunch list that was beside him. At first glance, there was nothing strange about it. She just ordered a lamb chop. The problem was in the note, that she wanted lamb ribs that were not even a month old. Sister Yi, where do you want me to find a lamb that is not even a month old? The person in charge of logistics was a new intern from Fengshang. He looked aggrieved and was about to cry. Yi Huanyan stuffed the menu back into the intern's hands. Go buy it first. Try to buy it from the best Western restaurant. I'll coordinate other things when I get back. The intern looked as if he had been granted amnesty, and looked at Yi Huanyan gratefully. When it was time for lunch, Su Nianhua changed his clothes, and the crew sat at the table in the studio to eat. Everyone ate their own food. The cameraman looked at the negatives on the computer as he ate. The pace of work was even better than pleasure. The intern in charge of buying food for the artists rushed back with 2 big bags. He took out the plastic boxes one by one. First, he took out Su Nianhua's share, and placed it in front of him and his agent. Then, he handed the other bag from the Western restaurant to LV Shah's agent. LV Shah's agent glanced at the lamb chop in the bag and frowned. Is this what I want? Do you think I don't know what's good for me? The intern's face turned red when he was yelled at. He defended himself aggrievedly. How can I find a lamb that is not even a month old at this time? LV Shah's agent became even more agitated when he heard his rebuttal. He scolded. Why are you so aggrieved? Is this how Fengshang treats its artists? What did you say when you begged Shasha to come to the shoot? Yi Huanyan had just come out of the bathroom when he heard Naneo making a ruckus. He quickly understood what was going on and ran over. The intern was crying because of LV Shah's agent. He couldn't stop sobbing. Yi Huanyan glanced at LV Shah, who was sitting there with a cold and silent expression. Then he looked at the agent, who was making threatening gestures. His heart skipped a beat. He had a feeling that this person was not easy to deal with. People who knew how to kill with a borrowed knife were the most difficult to deal with. What's going on? Yi Huanyan put on an obsequious smile, and pulled the intern behind him. The moment the manager saw Yi Huanyan, she became even more aggressive. Miss Yi, you've come at the right time. We've already stipulated in the contract that Shasha will be here for the shoot. Her food, clothes, accommodation and transportation will all be according to her standards. What's wrong with this intern? You asked her to buy the wrong lunch, but she bought the wrong lunch? What's wrong with this? Yi Huanyan felt his ears buzzing with the agent's sharp voice. He really didn't know what LV Shah was capable of. Where did he find this agent from? Why did he pick her out of all the shrews? Big sisterly, it's our fault that we didn't buy the lunch properly. How about this? Just treat this meal as giving face to our editor-in-chief. That's it for now. From the next meal onwards, no matter what request you have, we'll do it. Seeing that Yi Huanyan had a good attitude, the agent didn't seem to have any intention of making things difficult. He just glanced at the sobbing intern and scolded. You blind thing. I'll let it go since Miss Yi is pleading for you. The intern was also angry. Just as she was about to flare up, Yi Huanyan secretly pinched her arm and made her shut up. LV Shah saw this, and a trace of mockery flashed across her eyes. She looked up at Yi Huanyan. Chapter 229. It's not a big deal. Why do you have to be so angry with a young girl? LV Shah's voice was a little sharp. It was a very special voice. Yi Huanyan let out a sigh of relief. Just ask her to resign. She doesn't have to come back. LV Shah sat on the sofa and spoke in a very calm tone. It was as if she was talking about something completely normal. She didn't even look up as she continued to flip through the magazine in her hand. If it weren't for her special voice, it would have given the illusion that these words didn't come from her mouth. However, this sentence made Yi Huanyan's expression change. She blurted out, I'm afraid that won't do. She was the one who suggested that the young girl buy the steak first. After all, she didn't handle the matter properly. The young intern was only following her orders. As soon as his voice fell, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Everyone knew that this world-famous model always meant what she said. Oh, LV Shah slowly raised her head and looked at Yi Huanyan disdainfully. She asked, Who are you? There was a hint of disdain in her words, but it wasn't targeted. Yi Huanyan gritted her teeth. I am the person in charge of this shoot. What are you in charge of? Asked LV Shah. Yi Huanyan hesitated for a few seconds before she said seriously, I am in charge of the staff and monitoring the progress of the shoot. Miss LV Shah, I'm sure you want the shoot to end as soon as possible. Are you in charge of the shoot? The corners of LV Shah's mouth lifted slightly into a sneer. It's just a lunch. How can Fengshang be considered a top domestic fashion magazine? Yi Huanyan was speechless. Originally, Su Nianhua didn't say anything, because she was a public figure. However, when she saw that LV Shah was deliberately making things difficult for her, she couldn't help but say, LV Shah, if you don't like Fengshang, why did you sign the contract in the first place? When she saw that Su Nianhua was speaking up for Yi Huanyan, LV Shah's face darkened. She retorted, if they hadn't asked me over and over again, I would have thought that they were very sincere. Su Nianhua did not wait for her to finish and interrupted her. I heard that the model selection for this year's Milan show has started. I wonder if Miss Liu has entered the preliminary round? LV Shah's expression changed. She looked at Su Nianhua with an unfriendly gaze. Su Nianhua didn't care at all. He said lightly, we're all going to be in this industry in the future. We shouldn't offend too many people and leave a path for ourselves, right? LV Shah was nowhere to be seen in the Milan Fashion Model Preliminary Shoot magazine. This meant that LV Shah had failed in this year's world's top model lingerie show. Su Nianhua happened to hear that LV Shah's agent was in contact with the major domestic film and television companies. It seemed that LV Shah was interested in becoming an actress. The high-end and otherworldly persona that he had packaged could not stand up to scrutiny. After Su Nianhua said this, LV Shah's expression turned ugly. However, it was only her first year that she had failed to be selected in the model contest. And because she had missed an important interview, she had left an extremely bad impression on this year's interviewers. She did not feel that she was outdated in the modeling field. She was somewhat dissatisfied with the arrangement of the management team. Now that she was provoked by Su Nianhua, she was a little angry. There was a hint of sarcasm in her voice as she said coldly, Miss Yi, you're really something. I was blind to offend you. I didn't expect you to have the protection of President Ling of Pleasure and King of Singers Su Nianhua. No wonder even the best actress Sheng Anren couldn't beat you. I really can't afford to offend a woman like you. This sentence poured a basin of dirty water on Yi Huanyan's private life. Yi Huanyan didn't expect LV Shah to know her and know about her relationship with Ling Han. Although her relationship with Sheng Anren had been a hot topic on the internet, it wasn't a public trial. She wasn't a public figure, so the news was full of her alias and mosaic photos. Only a small number of people in the industry knew about this. Facing the strange gazes around her, Yi Huanyan suddenly felt like she was in the court 2 months ago. The humiliation gradually swept over her body. Her face gradually lost color, and she secretly clenched her fists. LV Shah, you. Su Nianhua anxiously looked at Yi Huanyan and couldn't find the words to stop LV Shah's mouth for a moment. LV Shah thought that she had poked at her sore spot, so she hardened her heart and snorted coldly. You just climbed into a man's bed. Who do you think you are to deserve my respect? Yi Huanyan's clenched fingers trembled slightly. She wanted to shout that she didn't, but there was a stuffy breath in her throat, and she couldn't say anything. LV Shah, don't go too far. Su Nianhua glared at her fiercely with an unfriendly expression. I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. LV Shah's mouth had a hint of sarcasm. She looked up at her agent and said bluntly, call Carrie and tell him that either he replaces this woman or I leave. Her words were very decisive, and there was no way out. Her agent also quickly made the call, but it seemed to be a little slower on the other end of the phone. As soon as the call was connected, the shrew's cursing voice echoed throughout the entire studio. Yi Huanyan had a sense of powerlessness. She had dealt with countless disputes on the shooting scene before, but no matter what happened, it had nothing to do with her personally, so she could deal with it easily. But this time it was different. She didn't know what was wrong at all. In the end, the spearhead was aimed at her. This LV Shah was obviously aiming at her. She took such a big detour. Why did she do this? Not long after, Carrie came in a hurry. To everyone's surprise, Carrie, the chief secretary who was second only to Su Meng and Fengxiang, was following a silver-haired man at this moment with a very respectful expression. The silver-haired man was at least 1.87 meters tall, nearly 1.9 meters tall. He had an aura of both good and evil. His black suit was very well cut. As soon as he entered the studio, he turned his eyes to the direction where the crowd gathered. His face slightly darkened, and he strode over. A woman's exclamation suddenly broke out in the center of the crowd. "Child Gu!" Yi Huanyan was attracted by the exclamation before she had time to take a look at Gu Xinian. She turned around and looked at LV Sha in surprise. The moment she saw her expression, she was more surprised than when she saw Gu Xinian here. The surprise and shyness in LV Sha's eyes were self-evident. Compared with the cold look just now, it was unknown how many times it was reversed. She obviously knew Gu Xinian, and the relationship between the two people seemed to be unusual. Chapter 230. Then, under everyone's astonished gazes, LV Sha pushed her way through the crowd. She lifted the corner of her dress and jogged in the direction of the silver-haired man. She didn't seem to care about everyone's gazes. "Young Master Gu, are you here to see me?" Gu Xinian brushed past her and walked in the direction of Yi Huanyan. LV Sha stood rooted to the ground in a daze. She turned around in disbelief to look at the cold figure. "I happened to be talking about something upstairs. I heard you were here, so I came to see you. Is there any trouble?" he asked. Of course, the person he was asking was Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan nodded hesitantly, then shook his head. Nothing, nothing. You go about your business." Sun Yanhua stood behind Yi Huanyan and sized up the man in front of him warily. He looked at his silver hair and seemed to recall something. At that moment, LV Sha had already come back to her senses. She stood behind Gu Xinian and questioned without caring about her image. "You broke up with me because of this woman?" Everyone was in an uproar. LV Sha had always been a cold and aloof goddess in China. She was the perfect example of an otherworldly person. Because of this layer of mystery, she was especially favored by big names and had countless high-end endorsements. At that moment, she was completely like a lovelorn woman questioning her ex-boyfriend. It really made her image of a goddess in people's hearts crumble. Her manager had been hinting at her many times, but she ignored him. Yi Huanyan's heart tightened. He was afraid that Gu Xinian would say something that would make the current chaotic situation worse. "Is that why you're making things difficult for her?" Gu Xinian turned to look at the woman behind him. A trace of malice appeared in his eyes. "When I sent you away, I seemed to have warned you not to act smart in front of me." The stack of files that had been left in the hotel last time had obviously been tampered with. There was a photo missing. If he wasn't wrong, this woman had secretly taken it away when he wasn't around. LV Sha, on the other hand, was even more convinced that Gu Xinian had taken a liking to Yi Huanyan because he was protecting her. The anger she had been suppressing in her heart for a long time suddenly accumulated to the extreme. She pointed at Yi Huanyan without caring about her image and screeched, "Young Master Gu, do you know that this woman was sentenced to prison because she failed to seduce her superior and intentionally hurt him? She is a vicious woman. Don't be fooled by her." Yi Huanyan's face was deathly pale. If not for Sun Yanhua supporting her from behind, she would have lost her footing. The feeling of her old wounds not yet healed, the feeling of her scars being pulled and her veins being counted was like thousands of ants crawling all over her body, making her extremely uncomfortable. Gu Xinian took 2 steps towards LV Sha and closed the distance between them. LV Sha could clearly see the displeasure in his eyes. He said in a low voice, "Of course I know." LV Sha was stunned. "Then why did you? Since you know so much, do you know why she was released so quickly?" LV Sha's face froze. She looked at Gu Xinian in disbelief. "How is that possible? Why is that not possible?" Gu Xinian sneered. In front of everyone, he pinched LV Sha's chin and said disdainfully, "I broke up with you because you couldn't wait to take off your clothes in front of me. It made me sick. But now, you still make me sick when you put on your clothes." You were very successful in this aspect. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. Even if this woman was really annoying, it was still too ungentlemanly to be able to say such things about a woman in front of so many people so mercilessly. Yi Huanyan also frowned. She couldn't bear to listen to this. However, Gu Xinyan's words focused everyone's attention on LV Shah's private life. No one cared about Yi Huanyan anymore. LV Shah's face was deathly pale, and her shoulders were trembling slightly. She stared in disbelief at the man who had doted on her for more than half a year. She couldn't believe that he would say such words to humiliate her in front of so many people. Gu Xinyan, you. Focus on the shoot. Don't make me feel even more disgusted by you. He let go of her chin, lowered his head and whispered something in her ear. LV Shah's shoulders were shaking like a sieve, and her face was drained of all color. Everyone scattered like birds and animals after Carrie yelled at them. They each took their own lunches and went to find a place to eat. This was the working atmosphere of Fengshang. Even if there was entertainment and gossip, it would never affect the efficiency of the work. After LV Shah's interference, the originally scheduled lunchtime was over. In order not to affect the progress of the shoot, they had no choice but to quickly get back to the shoot. The photographer hurriedly ate 2 mouthfuls of food, then asked Su Nianhua and LV Shah to get changed and get ready for the shoot. Yi Huanyan stared blankly at LV Shah. She was able to keep a straight face as if nothing had happened. She went back to the shoot, but there was a hint of fear in her eyes from time to time. What exactly did Gu Xinyan say to her? What did you say to LV Shah? Asked Yi Huanyan. No matter what I said, she won't bully you again. Gu Xinyan's eyes showed gentleness. It was as if he wasn't the evil and ungentlemanly jerk who had faced LV Shah just now. Yi Huanyan wasn't used to his gentleness. She avoided his gaze and said hesitantly, Did you come to see me because of what happened last time? Gu Xinyan nodded slightly. Last time he stopped me halfway. Because of your relationship with him, I couldn't get into a conflict with him. So there are still some things I haven't done yet. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. After a few seconds of silence, she stammered, I've been thinking about it, and I still think what you said is impossible. My mother isn't that kind of person. You might have gotten the wrong person. Gu Xinyan didn't take it seriously. He said calmly, I know you won't believe me, so I have to give you some concrete evidence. Su Nianhua glanced at Yi Huanyan during a break in the shoot. He saw her hand a transparent bag to the silver-haired man. The man smiled and patted her head. Yi Huanyan didn't seem to mind. The man lowered his head and seemed to say something, then left the studio. The two of them were a little intimate, and Su Nianhua couldn't help thinking about what LV Shah had asked him. At that moment, LV Shah was standing close to his shoulder. She looked like she was fully focused, but her eyes were a little unfocused, as if she couldn't focus. When Su Nianhua turned around to film, he lowered his voice and asked, That man is Gu Xinyan? LV Shah's arm on his shoulder stiffened. She glanced at Yi Huanyan, and after confirming that Gu Xinyan had left, she relaxed. She changed her pose and said softly, I can only advise you not to have any fantasies about Ms. Yi. Stay away from her. Those people are heartless. Su Nianhua didn't react for a long time. What did she mean by those people? LV Shah's answer was so strange that he didn't know where to start asking. Looking at the disappearing figure in the direction of the exit of the studio, LV Shah couldn't help thinking about the first time she saw Gu Xinyan. She compared it to what he had just said, and finally, she looked completely defeated. Chapter 231. In the underground parking lot of Fengshang, a sapphire blue car slowly parked in the exclusive parking space. After stopping the car, the lights were turned off. The man driving looked down at his wrist, then leaned back in the driver's seat, and slowly breathed a sigh of relief. He had an impromptu meeting in the afternoon, so he thought he wouldn't be able to pick her up in time. It was just past 5, and Fengshang got off work at 5:30. If the shooting didn't go well, it would be delayed. Ling Han got out of the car and walked toward the elevator. With a ding, the elevator door slowly opened. Looking at the man walking out of the elevator, Ling Han's eyes turned cold. Gu Xinyan, his signature silver hair, had appeared in his eyes a little too often recently. The two looked at each other, and in the end, Ling Han spoke first. "Why are you here, President Gu?" Ling Han's tone was unfriendly. The Gu family was in the electronic communication business, which had nothing to do with a fashion media company like Fengshang. It was too far-fetched to say that he was here to talk about cooperation, not to mention that Gu Xinian was here in person. Gu Xinian didn't hide his purpose at all. "I'm here to find her. Are you here to pick her up?" Needless to say, he was referring to Yi Huanyan. Gu Xinian spoke frankly, as if he didn't have any ulterior motives. This made Ling Han even more vigilant. He asked in a low voice, "What's your relationship with her? When did you meet?" Gu Xinian didn't answer this question directly. He only turned the ring on his right ring finger and smiled wickedly. "Are you nervous?" Ling Han frowned and looked at him in displeasure. This man was very dangerous. His words and actions were completely unexpected, and you couldn't see his emotions. Xiao Mu had searched through all the information, but she only got some information about him, and this information had nothing to do with Yi Huanyan. Just as Ling Han was on guard, Gu Xinian walked up to him and said, "You don't have to be nervous. I don't have that kind of relationship with her. I'm just here to talk to her about something. Don't think too much about it." After saying this, he turned around and glanced at Ling Han. "Instead of going around guarding against others who might snatch her away, why don't you treat her better? In this life, not all regrets can be made up for." Ling Han was stunned. By the time he came back to his senses, Gu Xinian had already driven out of the garage. According to the information that Xiao Mu gave him, the Gu clan was in the electronic communication industry and practically monopolized the global communication base stations. Under this kind of background, no matter what outrageous things Gu Xinian did, no one dared to interfere. And Gu Xinian was indeed someone who didn't play by the rules. Since he took over the Gu clan, he used thunderous methods to eliminate 1/3 of the political power in the corporation. They were all relatives of the Gu clan, and he didn't recognize anyone. He was decisive and ruthless, definitely not a good person. This kind of person never looked up to others. So why did he protect Yi Huanyan again and again? He didn't find any useful information, and the sound of the elevator door opening interrupted his thoughts. In the Fengshang studio, they were in the last part of the shoot. The stylist was busy giving out instructions on the side. Even Yi Huanyan came forward to help with the makeup touching tools. Seeing her come over with a powder puff, LV Shah's eyes suddenly filled with fear. She hurriedly waved her hand and grabbed her manager's hand, refusing to let go. My manager can touch up the makeup. You miss Yi, go help Su Nianhua." Yi Huanyan was stunned. She thought that Gu Xinian probably said something that really did scare her. She sighed silently in her heart and turned to walk toward Su Nianhua. When Ling Han arrived at the studio, this was the scene that greeted him. "Raise your head. Let me take a look." Yi Huanyan held a powder puff in one hand and a box of powder in the other. She carefully looked at Su Nianhua's face. Su Nianhua slightly raised his head. She used the powder puff to cover up the places that she didn't hit just now. "You knew Gu Xinian before?" Su Nianhua was a bit absent-minded. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a moment. Her hands paused for a moment. "We just met not long ago." Su Nianhua looked at her, faintly feeling that she seemed to be hiding something. "Then the person who brought you out was also him?" "Yes." Yi Huanyan turned around and changed the brush to brush the side of his face. The soft brush brushed across his cheek, and it was a bit itchy. Su Nianhua raised his head to look at the woman in front of him. Her long hair was loosely tied up, and a few strands of bangs hung in front of her forehead, slowly floating. There seemed to be a gentle light on her face that could enshroud one's heart. Compared to 2 months ago, she was a lot thinner. Her eyes were a bit dull, as if there were a lot of things that were troubling her. He felt a bit of heartache, but more than that, he felt powerless. Bringing her out of that dark place was something that Ling Han and Gu Xinian could easily do, but he couldn't. What right did he have to say that he loved her? "Yan, why are you still by his side after you came out?" Yi Huanyan's hand that was brushing the shadow paused for a moment. She hesitated for a few seconds, and finally said something that even she didn't believe. "That's my home." Her lack of confidence made Su Nianhua feel a burst of anger in his heart. Why was the woman that he couldn't wait to protect in the palm of his hand so lowly beside that man? Why was it that when she mentioned that man, she would reveal such a sad expression that made people feel sorry for her? If you are willing, I can also give you a home. He suddenly spoke, and his tone was very firm. His eyes were burning as he looked at Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan clenched the brush in her hand, pursed her lips tightly, and thought for a while. After a while, she moved her lips slightly and said in a gentle voice, "Lu Shen, I'm pregnant." Yi Huanyan's voice was very soft, and only Su Nianhua heard what she said clearly. He stared at her in a daze, and his eyes were full of shock. He didn't know what to think, but the shock in his eyes slowly calmed down. When he looked at Yi Huanyan again, he felt a little more powerless. No wonder she was willing to stay by his side. After the shoot, Su Nianhua offered to send her back. Yi Huanyan didn't refuse. The two of them walked out of the studio side by side, and toward the elevator. They didn't notice that there was a figure standing at the elevator on the other side, surrounded by a layer of coldness. I think this child wants me to give him another chance. I believe he will be a good father. Yi Huanyan's voice sounded in the elevator. The joy of being a mother for the first time had covered all the sadness in her eyes. Su Nianhua knew that it was useless for him to say anything. He smiled a little reluctantly. I hope he will be. I also really hope that you can live well and don't be wronged. Yi Huanyan nodded. Don't worry, it won't happen. When they got out of the elevator, Yi Huanyan felt a pain in her stomach and staggered. Fortunately, Su Nianhua was quick and supported her. What's wrong? He asked with concern. Yi Huanyan looked up in surprise and exclaimed in disbelief. Lu Shen, he moved in my stomach and kicked me. I felt him kick me. Chapter 232. Yi Huanyan was pleasantly surprised. She held Su Nianhua's hand and cried tears of joy. He's moving. Su Nianhua didn't know what the baby's movement meant to Yi Huanyan, but when he saw the long-awaited smile on Yi Huanyan's face, he finally let go of his grudge against Ling Han. Since this child could bring her so much joy and happiness, then he really shouldn't interfere. Yi Huanyan was extremely excited. She stroked her lower abdomen and felt the existence of this strong little life for the first time. She felt his vitality more strongly than any other time before. All the worries she had for the past few days vanished into thin air. He was very healthy and wasn't affected at all. He was growing tenaciously. In the southwest corner of the garage, next to the elevator on another floor, under the cover of a black car, there was a strong chill in Ling Han's eyes. He looked at Yi Huanyan holding Su Nianhua's hand, crying and laughing at the same time. He looked at this woman easily showing that long-lost smile in front of other men. It was as if a knife had been stabbed in his eyes. The pain instantly turned into a thick flame of jealousy. Yi Huanyan, if this child is really mine, why have you never shown me the slightest bit of a sincere smile for our so-called child? A sapphire blue car slowly drove out of the underground garage from the corner of Su Nianhua's eyes. He was slightly stunned when he turned the steering wheel, as if he had seen that car somewhere before. There's still 2 days of filming left. After the filming is over, will you still be in Lanjiang? Yi Huanyan's voice interrupted his thoughts. He smiled gently, but when he smiled, there was a bit of bitterness in his eyes. The company arranged for a 20-day variety show to be filmed. I have to go to Yunnan. He wasn't stupid. The 20-day variety show was most likely arranged by Ling Han on purpose, in order to keep him away from Yi Huanyan. He was really unscrupulous. Yi Huanyan didn't hear anything strange, but when she heard Yunnan, she was a little happy. That place is pretty good. When I was in university, I went there with Xiaoyu. The scenery is very good, but now it's a little more commercialized. Su Nianhua smiled faintly. Fortunately, we went to a relatively remote place. For safety reasons, we found a few places where there weren't too many people. As they chatted along the way, the car arrived at Jinjiang Park. This time, without waiting for Yi Huanyan to speak, Su Nianhua directly parked the car at the entrance of the neighborhood. Can you go back from here? Yi Huanyan nodded. Yes, that's fine. Thank you. You don't have to be so polite with me. Okay, be careful on the road. Yi Huanyan smiled and stroked the loose strands of hair by her ear. She pushed open the car door, got out of the car, and walked towards the entrance of the neighborhood. Su Nianhua stared at her back for a long time, absent-mindedly thinking about all the things that had happened in the past 10 years. Was it because he came back too late? Although he had comforted himself thousands of times, he still couldn't get over the hurdle in his heart. If she was really happy, then so be it. But was she really happy? Jinjiang Park Villa. Yi Huanyan went into the house to change her shoes. When she took off her high heels, she took a deep breath. She hadn't worn them for a long time, and now she was not used to wearing such high heels. Furthermore, she had to take care of the child in her belly, which made it difficult for her. She had to think of a way to avoid wearing high heels at work. Ling Ling had already prepared dinner. She asked Yi Huanyan to eat, and watched her eat while observing her reaction. How is it? Yi Huanyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Do you have to look at me like that? I haven't had morning sickness recently. Ling Ling was still worried. If you still want to vomit after eating, you have to tell me. It's not normal for you to have morning sickness after so long. Also, starting tomorrow, you have to go to the hospital for a checkup. Although Dr. Li comes to the house regularly, she can't bring the equipment. It's not that I'm a jinx, but the abnormality of the fetus needs to be checked. Because Yi Huanyan was pregnant, Ling Ling consciously looked for a lot of books to read. First, it was to adjust her eating habits. Second, it was to prepare for taking care of her and the child in the future. Yi Huanyan's eyes dimmed when she was reminded of the pregnancy checkup. Ling Ling naturally knew what she was thinking and comforted her. Young master is just too busy with work. Otherwise, he would definitely go with you. Yi Huanyan lowered her head and didn't comment. In fact, she knew the truth better than anyone. Ling Han might not admit that this child was his, so it was impossible for him to go with her for a pregnancy checkup. The next day, the entertainment gossip was all over the news. The CEO of Pleasure, Ling Han, went to a nightclub to have fun the night before. He hugged women on both sides, and they all had hot bodies. The news naturally spread like wildfire. Yi Huanyan couldn't help but see the news while she was at work. Immediately, she felt a burning pain in her eyes, and hurriedly looked away from the newspaper. Carrie handed her an invitation and a stack of work permits. This is the agreed-upon location. Enter with the invitation and work permits. LV Shah and Su Nianhua should be there around 9:30. Take the cameraman and the crew there first, and see if there's anything that needs to be changed. Yi Huanyan took the invitation and work permits. After checking them, she nodded. Okay, I understand. Carrie's gaze landed on Yi Huanyan's feet. He nodded in satisfaction. Your shoes are beautiful. Thank you. Yi Huanyan smiled. After leaving Fengshang, Yi Huanyan led a van of people to the church. The scheduled location was St. Paul's Church in Lanjiang City. One needed to make an appointment and an invitation to enter. This was the location for the outdoor shoot this time. After all, it was a Valentine's Day issue. The planning department of Fengshang had put in a lot of effort to think of such a famous but private place like St. Paul's Church, which was a high-end and unpopular place. After arriving at the location, Yi Huanyan changed into the prepared flats and got out of the van. The sense of security when she stepped on the ground made her feel that although it was tough to go on an outdoor shoot, it was very worth it. After successfully meeting up with the two artists, she entered the church garden after verifying her identity at the entrance. However, just as she was about to enter the church for the shoot, she was told that the place was occupied. Carrie's assistant Xiao Chun, who was assigned to Yi Huanyan by Carrie, was arguing with a nun at the entrance of the church. She was already red in the face from the argument. When she saw Yi Huanyan, she hurried over as if she had seen her savior. Sister Yi, they said that someone is praying in the church right now. The entire church has been booked, and they won't let us in. Yi Huanyan frowned. Didn't we make an appointment in advance? We should have all the time in the afternoon. The nun was in her 50s. She had deep-set facial features and looked like she was of mixed blood. Her deep-set eyes looked a little scary. She spoke fluent Chinese. I'm sorry, everyone. Please wait a little longer. Our church has a distinguished guest today. What distinguished guest? Isn't it because you took money from two parties and want to make more money? Xiao Chen had a bad temper and yelled at the nun again. Yi Huanyan pulled her and said seriously, "How much longer will it take before it ends?" Chapter 233. When the nun saw Yi Huanyan's gentle attitude, the displeasure on her face faded a little. She patiently explained, "It won't take too long. You just have to wait for the lady inside to finish praying. She comes every week at this time. I've already explained to your Miss Chen before, but she didn't listen." "Hey, you old nun, what are you talking about? We've already agreed on the contract that we can use the church as we wish today. Are you talking about yesterday or tomorrow?" "I didn't listen." The nun's face darkened. She frowned and looked at Xiao Chen, clearly disgusted with her. Most of the people in Fengshang were swift and decisive. Not many of them had good tempers. Looking at the situation, it was likely that the time had been set. But the people in the church didn't communicate clearly that there would be people praying during that time. This led to the conflict between the two parties. Yi Huanyan didn't want to cause trouble. It was still early, so she only needed to appease Su Nianhua and LV Sha. It wouldn't be a problem to wait for a few minutes. Su Nianhua naturally didn't have any objections. After the incident with Gu Xinian yesterday, LV Sha also didn't have any objections to Yi Huanyan's suggestion to adjust the working time. Their respective managers and assistants placed chairs in the garden and held up umbrellas as they waited for the people inside to finish praying. They waited for half an hour. In the end, even Yi Huanyan started to get anxious. Didn't they say that it would be over soon? Why does one prayer take so long? The nun was still guarding the door. Other than her, there were two men who looked like bodyguards. They stood at the door like door gods, guarding the church like an iron tower. Even a fly couldn't get in. "I'll go ask and see." The nun seemed to be puzzled, so she turned and entered the door. Not long after, the nun came out with a troubled expression. "How is it?" Yi Huanyan asked. The nun hesitated for a few seconds and said embarrassedly, "That lady said that she's still waiting for someone. She can leave after praying last night." Before Yi Huanyan could say anything, a scolding voice interrupted. "Are you playing with us?" Xiao Chen was furious. "Do you think it's easy to earn our money, little Chen?" Yi Huanyan was afraid that she would act rashly and quickly pulled her back. She looked at the nun with a sullen expression. "You've already wasted our entire morning. Please get that person inside to come out as soon as possible. We really can't wait any longer." The nun frowned, looking like she was in a dilemma. At this moment, a sharp and unkind voice came from within the church. It was extremely harsh to Yi Huanyan's ears. "I was wondering who was yelling at the door. What a coincidence." Behind the two bodyguards blocking the door, a tall woman slowly walked out. A pair of wine-red high boots were the first to enter the eyes of the crowd. A short black leather skirt, a new red and black checkered haute couture coat, exposed thighs between the black leather skirt, and the high boots were very fanciful. This very flirtatious outfit made the blood of the men present spurt out a breath. But her coquettish body did not match this church. It was better to say that she came to walk the runway than to pray. The woman's delicate facial features twisted with contempt. Her eyes wandered and finally fell on Yi Huanyan, exuding a faint chill. "Secretary Yi, long time no see?" Yi Huanyan was willing to believe that this was just a coincidence. Sheng Amren would not be so bored as to deliberately come to this church to oppose her. But since there was such a coincidence, she also believed that Sheng Amren would definitely use this as a pretext to make a fuss. "I didn't expect that the person praying here today would be you." Yi Huanyan's tone was a little stiff. The swaggering woman in front of her had framed her again and again. When she saw her, she still looked arrogant. She had to admire the strength of her psychological quality. "It's not just me." Sheng Amren's eyes turned slightly and fell on a figure who had just arrived at the back of the crowd. She immediately raised her hand and showed her signature gentle smile. "Han here." The moment she turned around, Yi Huanyan's face drained of blood. It was Ling Han. He was wearing a well-tailored black suit, and Xiao Mu followed behind him. The two walked out from the crowd of Fengshang employees. Both of them were over 1. 8 meters tall, so they were particularly eye-catching in the crowd. In addition, they had extraordinary bearings, so they attracted everyone's attention. When he saw Yi Huanyan, a slight astonishment flashed through Ling Han's eyes. Sheng Anren had quietly taken his arm. He subconsciously wanted to pull away, but from the corner of his eye, he glanced at Su Nianhua, who was sitting not far behind Yi Huanyan. Thinking of what happened in the garage the previous afternoon, a burst of anger suddenly rose in his heart, so he let Sheng Anren take his arm and walk toward her. Han, Secretary Yi is also here today. She seems to have work. Ling Han snorted. Is that so? These two simple words expressed his indifference toward Yi Huanyan. Just as he was about to enter the church, Yi Huanyan's voice suddenly sounded from behind him. Director Ling, we reserved the church first. May I ask how long you and Miss Sheng will be staying inside? A trace of coldness surfaced in Ling Han's eyes. Without turning his head, he said indifferently, Since you want to film, then just come in and film. Otherwise, people will say that we're taking advantage of our power to bully others. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan was startled for a moment. When she looked up, she saw Sheng Anren throwing her a sharp look, which was quite a warning. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. She had run into them all. Many of the staff members did not know the relationship between them. When they heard Ling Han's words, they boldly carried their equipment and walked into the church. One by one they all followed. In the end, actually, Yi Huanyan did not say whether she agreed or not. Everyone in the church had already started setting up all kinds of photography equipment and connecting all kinds of wires. When Su Nianhua walked past Yi Huanyan, he hesitantly patted her shoulder. His eyes showed some distress. Can you still continue to work? If you can't, why don't you go back first? I'll call Carrie and ask for a replacement. There shouldn't be any problems here. Yi Huanyan took a deep breath and shook her head. It's fine. Work is work. These are two different things. In the church the lights were shining. Su Nianhua and LV Sha quickly got into the mood. Today's shoot was a set of casual wedding photos. The two of them did not need to be too intimate. Yesterday's shoot was mainly about sex. Today's shoot was mainly about solemnity and holiness. In the corner of the first row of the church, Ling Han and Sheng Anren sat side by side. They clenched their fists and bowed their heads. With their eyes closed, they were praying. Opposite them stood the priest mumbling something. Yi Huanyan looked at the backs of the two people, and there was some disappointment in her eyes. She did not know when Ling Han started the habit of praying in the church, but just now, the nun said that he would come almost every week. It had been more than 2 years. Starting about half a year ago, every week at this time, Sheng Anren would also come. The lighting technician adjusted the position of the self-provided strong light on the track, preparing to change the background. When he pulled near Sheng Anren, she suddenly opened her eyes and held Ling Han's arm, revealing a frightened expression. In Yi Huanyan's eyes, it was very glaring. Chapter 234. Ling Han looked up at Yi Huanyan and quickly withdrew his gaze. Yi Huanyan felt that she had suffered enough embarrassment from this man. If it weren't for the support of the child in her belly, she really didn't know when she would fall down and never want to wake up again. She avoided the two people in the corner, pretended to be relaxed, and watched the shooting progress of the scene. She also specially reminded the lighting technician to pull the lights away from Sheng Anren. After Yi Huanyan left, Ling Han unhappily pushed the woman in his arms away. He looked up at the bright lampstand not far away, and his eyes were covered with a gloomy look. Sheng Anren put away the dissatisfaction of being pushed away, tried to adjust her expression and asked softly, "What's the matter? Do you think of Grandma?" "Don't be too sad," she asked carefully. Speaking of Wen Qingwan, Ling Han was stunned. He withdrew his gaze from the lampstand, and the coldness in his eyes flashed away. Sheng Anren reminded him softly, "We have made an appointment for lunch. It's almost time for us to leave." Ling Han nodded slightly, got up and left with Sheng Anren, and didn't look at Yi Huanyan again from beginning to end. Yi Huanyan was watching the finished film beside her notebook, but the corner of her eyes had been following Ling Han's figure until he completely disappeared at the door of the church. After that day, Ling Han resumed the habit of going out with Sheng Anren. The news that they were going to get married was reported from time to time, which made a lot of noise. But in the end, it returned to silence. Then they waited for a certain time, and repeated the cycle again. Sheng Anren's eagerness to join the Ling family was obvious. It seemed that the whole entertainment circle was counting with their fingers when she would be able to wait for the clouds to open. It was as if everything had returned to how it was half a year ago. Yi Huanyan had once again become a secret lover. The only difference from before was that she could no longer see Ling Han at her workplace. It was a relief for Yi Huanyan to not have to see each other all day. That day, when she got home from work, the television was playing an entertainment interview. A familiar voice entered her ears, making Yi Huanyan pause as she was changing her shoes at the entrance. "Miss Sheng, do you have any plans to get married? Recently, your fans have been saying that you're already married. Is that true? Is the other party President Ling of Pleasure and Pleasure?" Sheng Anren smiled very naturally. "If there is any progress in the relationship, I will definitely tell my fans. It's just that I still think that career is more important now. Whether it's a man or a woman, they all have to have the ability to be self-reliant, right? Marriage is actually not that important." As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of a porcelain plate hitting the table came from the dining table. The TV flickered twice and turned black, followed by Lingling's indignant voice. "Stop pretending. Even if you want to get married, young master won't marry a woman like you." Looking in the direction of the voice, Lingling had just put down the remote control and was murmuring with her head down to arrange the plate. She didn't notice that Yi Huanyan had come back. Yi Huanyan stood at the entrance for a while, trying to pull the corners of her mouth up so that Lingling wouldn't see her sullen look, but she found that she really couldn't smile. "Miss Yi, you're back." Lingling's surprised voice came. Before she finished speaking, the sound of the door opening came from the study on the second floor. Yi Huanyan was stunned. She looked up and saw that it was Ling Han. He hadn't been back for almost a month. Why today? She was really absent-minded. Lingling walked up with a happy face. "Miss Yi, young master is back for dinner today. He has been waiting for you for a long time." Yi Huanyan was in a daze as Lingling helped her to the dining table. She looked at the stairs blankly. She felt that the figure had been gone for a month, and he looked even more gloomy. At this moment, the sound of his footsteps coming down the stairs hit her chest, making a thumping sound. It was like a dream, one of the few beautiful dreams she had. When she came back from work, the sun was setting, and he was at home, sitting with her at the dining table, and the two of them had a quiet meal together. Just like now, a strange feeling grew in her heart. "Why are you back?" Yi Huanyan asked carefully. He had already sat down at the dining table and let Lingling put a bowl of rice in front of him. He didn't say anything to stop her, nor did he mock her. "Eat first." His voice, which she hadn't heard in a long time, sounded a little hoarse. She was stunned. She picked up the bowl, but the food was tasteless. There seemed to be a layer of melancholy that could not be dissolved between Ling Han's brows. She had never seen such melancholy before. Did something happen? She swallowed a few mouthfuls of food and couldn't eat anymore. She put down the bowl and asked. Ling Han frowned. His expression was cold. Seeing that she was asking so seriously, he didn't want to hide it anymore. "Grandma is in the hospital." Yi Huanyan's eyes widened. She felt like something was taken away from her heart. She couldn't breathe. After a long time, she squeezed out a sentence with a trembling voice. "When did this happen? Is it serious?" "The doctor said she doesn't have much time left. She wants to see you." Ling Han's expression was heavy. His emotions were complicated. The feeling of being struck by lightning spread through her mind. Yi Huanyan held onto the table. For a moment, she felt like she couldn't breathe. In this world, the only elder who loved her the most was this one and only old lady. Why did old lady? Why? She looked at Ling Han in disbelief. She desperately wanted to hear more from him. Ling Han's gaze was very heavy. It was like a pool of stagnant water without any ripples. When he first heard the news, he also looked at the doctor like this. He thought there was always a way to save his grandmother, even if it meant going bankrupt and losing the entire pleasure company. But there wasn't. The old lady was old. It was time. He felt guilty. All these years, the one who really spent time with the old lady wasn't him, her grandson, but Yi Huanyan. That was why the old lady wanted to see her. Ever since Yi Huanyan went to prison, the old lady was angry with Ling Han. After her qi and blood were blocked, it led to many diseases. A month ago, she fell down in the courtyard and was sent to the intensive care unit. A week ago, the surgery was just finished, but the doctor had already issued several critical notices. The old lady's organs were rapidly aging. According to the doctor, she only had 1 month left. Because he didn't tell the old lady that Yi Huanyan had been released from prison, he didn't allow Yi Huanyan to contact the people in the old mansion. So, after the old lady's surgery, what she said to him was that she wanted to see Yi Huanyan. The old lady's biggest wish in life was to see Ling Han get married and hold a great-grandson as soon as possible. Ling Han felt guilty. This was part of the reason why he avoided Yi Huanyan for the past month. "I'll go now." Yi Huanyan staggered to her feet. She looked a little dazed. Her voice was already sobbing. Chapter 235. In the first hospital of Lanjiang City, the intensive care unit was a lifeless white. When Yi Huanyan arrived, the old lady had just woken up. When she saw Yi Huanyan, she put on a kind smile and waved at her. Looking at her lips, she said, "Yin Yin, come here." Yi Huanyan held back her tears and walked towards the bed with heavy steps. Her legs seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. Squatting by the bed, the old lady raised her hand, and she quickly held it. "Good child, don't cry." Yi Huanyan couldn't control herself. She turned around and rubbed her eyes, holding back her tears. When she turned back, she tried to force a smile, but it was uglier than crying. The old lady held her hand. "Yin Yin, Grandma has lived for so long. I have seen and enjoyed everything. I have almost no regrets in this life. What is there to be sad about?" Yi Huanyan took a deep breath and choked out, "Grandma, you will definitely get better. When you get better, I will move back to the old mansion to live with you and be with you every day." The old lady didn't reply and smiled lovingly. Then she turned her gaze behind Yi Huanyan and looked straight at him. "Ahan, you know that Grandma has always had a wish in her heart. I have been waiting for so many years. I have been waiting." Ling Han's gaze was slightly sluggish. His gaze fell on Yi Huanyan's back. He wanted to say something, but he stopped. "I am afraid that I won't be able to hold a grandson. I just want to see the two of you get married before I leave. Yin Yin is a good child. I am relieved to hand you over to him." The old lady's voice was weak and sounded particularly dull in the ward. "Can you promise, Grandma?" The old lady's hand broke free from Yi Huanyan's and reached out in the direction of Ling Han. Ling Han walked to Yi Huanyan's side and held his grandmother's withered hand. Yi Huanyan retreated to the side and lowered her head to wipe her tears. She gritted her teeth and refused to make a sound. She knew that her grandmother didn't like to hear her cry. Besides, it wasn't time to cry yet. She just felt uncomfortable, as if her internal organs had shifted. Her chest felt stuffy and painful. She heard her grandmother's words, but she didn't know how to respond. Ling Han didn't want to marry her. She had already thought it through. According to Ling Han's temperament, even if the old lady forced him now, he wouldn't agree. Ling Han leaned over beside his grandmother and held her hand tightly as he spoke hesitantly. "Grandma, about the wedding. Your father passed away too early." The old lady interrupted Ling Han's words as if she was talking to the air. Her eyes were a little unfocused, and she coughed twice. Her breathing was shallow. "Otherwise, I would have done whatever you wanted to do. But once I leave, there's no one by your side who can make me feel assured." "Ahan, how can I feel at ease?" Yi Huanyan's hands were clenched so tightly that her nails were almost embedded in her palms. She couldn't speak. She wanted to say, "Grandma, don't worry, I'll be by his side." But what right did she have to say such words? "Grandma, I'll go and get the marriage certificate with Yin Yin tomorrow." A deep voice rang out in the ward. It was as if a gust of wind had blown away the haze in the ward. The old lady's unfocused eyes finally refocused. She looked at Ling Han with joy, and even her voice had a bit of vitality. What did you say? I'll go and get the marriage certificate with Yin Yin tomorrow. Grandma, Yin Yin is already pregnant. You still have to hold your great-grandson. You must get better. Sentence after sentence, Yi Huanyan was caught off guard. The old lady had already turned her gaze to her lower abdomen. Seeing that her lower abdomen was slightly bulging, she almost cried with joy. Is it true? Is this true? Ling Han looked up and looked at Yi Huanyan meaningfully. He took her hand, and then put his arm around her shoulders. It's true, but I haven't had time to tell you that you've been sick for more than 4 months. Good. The old lady's eyes were full of gratification. She put their hands together and held them tightly. Good child. If I can see my great-grandson, even if I die, I can die in peace. Out of the intensive care unit, Yi Huanyan followed behind Ling Han. Her eyes were red. After entering the elevator, Ling Han handed her a tissue and said hesitantly, About the marriage. Yi Huanyan took the tissue. Her hand trembled slightly, and she looked up in panic. I know you don't want to. I won't use Grandma to force you to do anything. If you don't want to, then forget it. I'll just treat it as putting on a show with you in front of Grandma, to make her feel at ease. Ling Han's brows suddenly furrowed. A layer of gloominess appeared in his eyes. Are you so anxious to cut ties? Acting? How good are you at acting? That's why Grandma can't see your true colors after so long. You're really good at acting. Yi Huanyan looked at him blankly. She didn't know what to do. She just thought that he didn't want to get married. She just didn't want to force him to do anything. Why was it that in his eyes, no matter what she did or said, it was wrong? The elevator door opened with a ding. Ling Han grabbed her wrist and walked out. He was practically dragging her to the parking lot. With a cold expression, he forced her into the car. Han, where are we going? In the speeding car, Yi Huanyan didn't even dare to breathe loudly. After asking in a trembling voice, she grabbed the seat belt tightly. It was late at night. Leaving behind the neon lights, it was as if leaving behind the bustling streets. Ling Han's gloomy eyes were filled with emotions. The cold and determined words that came out of his mouth were like an order that couldn't be refused. The person who heard it could only accept it in silence. The Civil Affairs Bureau. Yi Huanyan looked at him blankly and said with difficulty, It's too late. The Civil Affairs Bureau is closed. However, Ling Han didn't seem to hear what she said. He stepped on the accelerator and sped in the direction of the Civil Affairs Bureau. His well-defined hand held the steering wheel. His pinky finger was trembling slightly. He was afraid that a long night was fraught with dreams. After dawn, when he woke up from his dream, he would not have the courage to leave those bloody past behind. There was a clamoring voice in the depths of his heart that he tried his best to suppress. Ling Han, you've wanted to do this for a long time. No matter what kind of evil debt she bears to Wen Qingwan. You say you can't let it go, but you've never vented your anger on her. You want to marry her. You've wanted to do it for a long time, but you even need to use Grandma's last wishes as an excuse to do something like marrying her. Coward. Those crazy thoughts swallowed up his rationality bit by bit. He pursed his lips and slowly rolled down the car window. The whistling night wind blew past his ears and covered all the clamoring. The hair in front of Yi Huanyan's forehead was messed up by the evening wind, flapping around her cheeks. The cold wind blew into her neck and invaded her entire body, making her limbs cold. She wrapped her coat tightly around her body and stared blankly at Ling Han's expression. Seeing his cold and painful expression, her already pale face became even more gloomy. The remaining joy of deceiving herself was peeling away bit by bit, disappearing without a trace with the night wind. Was marrying her such a painful thing? To make him lose control like this? She furrowed her eyebrows and her heart twitched. Chapter 236. Soon after the car got off the viaduct, they headed towards the Civil Affairs Bureau in the city center. It was already 3 o'clock in the morning, and the streets were empty except for a few trucks passing by. The bustle was gone, leaving the city in solitude. At the Civil Affairs Bureau of Lanjiang City, a national flag fluttered in the night sky. Ling Han drove the car into the spacious parking lot in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. His seatbelt clicked and was unbuckled. He held the steering wheel and was silent for a long time. Yi Huanyan clutched the seat belt and panted with lingering fear. Just now, when Ling Han had lost his mind and sped along the way, when he brushed past a few large trucks, the strong suction force had almost pulled their car into the ground several times. The feeling of the wheels floating still lingered in his heart. It was not yet dawn, and the parking lot was deserted. Only a white car was parked in the southeast corner facing them. The security guard came over to ask about the situation. When he heard that they were waiting to get a certificate, he widened his eyes in surprise. "It opens at 7:30. You came so early. Are you planning to wait until dawn?" Ling Han did not speak. Yi Huanyan could only force a smile. "We'll just wait." The security guard did not ask more. There were young men and women who came to the Civil Affairs Bureau for everything. He rubbed his eyes, yawned and left. It was silent outside the window. It was already spring, and a few birds could be heard vaguely. It was gloomy in the dark night, and it was chilling. Yi Huanyan could not help but look at Ling Han, only to see him frowning and looking dignified. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she swallowed the words back. "Coo!" A strange sound rang in the car. Yi Huanyan suddenly covered her lower abdomen and did not dare to look up. From the corner of her eye, she felt Ling Han glancing at her. After a long while, he opened the door and got out of the car without saying a word, leaving her alone in the car. After the crisp sound of the door closing, the surroundings fell into darkness. Under the dim yellow light of the parking lot, she saw his figure gradually disappear. He seemed to have lit a cigarette and was smoking as he walked. His figure was very lonely. Yi Huanyan's heart trembled. He couldn't help but reveal a pained expression on his face. To him, marrying her was a betrayal of Wen Qingwan. She knew how much pain he was in. For so long, no matter what he did to her, she felt that she couldn't bear a grudge against him. She wanted to save him, to free him from the resentment that he shouldn't have to bear. But her identity was the source of his resentment, so she couldn't save him, and both of them fell into depravity. As she thought about it, she wrapped her coat tightly around her and leaned against the soft seat of the driver's seat and closed her eyes. Sleepiness hit her, and her swollen eyes were unable to cope. The sound of the door opening woke her up. When she opened her eyes, a steaming transparent plastic bag was thrown into her arms. It contained 2 steamed buns and a cup of soy milk. She was stunned for a moment. When her fingertips touched something warm, her heart warmed. She looked up at Ling Han and whispered, "Thank you." Ling Han just glanced at her. "Don't think too much. I saw the breakfast shop open while I was smoking, so I bought it. I'm afraid you'll starve to death before the Civil Affairs Bureau opens." Yi Huanyan's heart was still warm. This kind of direct care from him could be counted on one hand. A steaming breakfast was enough to warm her through the entire winter. Yi Huanyan took out a steamed bun from the plastic bag and handed it to Ling Han. She said carefully, "You should eat some too." Ling Han frowned. He raised his hand slightly, but it was unknown what he was thinking. He turned his head coldly and looked out the window. "No need." Yi Huanyan retracted her hand. After hesitating for a few seconds, she looked at her lower abdomen. In the end, she lowered her head and took small bites of the steamed bun. After the morning sickness ended, she had a good appetite. But today, her mood plummeted because of Grandma's incident. But no matter what, she still had to eat for the sake of the baby in her stomach. She believed that the child that she had painstakingly protected was a blessing. The night was long, and dark clouds covered the moonlight. The heater in the car was on, so she didn't feel cold. After eating, Yi Huanyan felt sleepy. At first, she wanted to accompany Ling Han. Maybe he would want to say a few words to her. But in the end, she couldn't resist the sleepiness and closed her eyes. The car was filled with the sound of steady breathing. Ling Han turned to look at her. He pressed the button to adjust the air conditioner and raised the temperature in the car. Then, he crossed his arms and looked at her with a pair of dark eyes. No matter how he denied it, he knew that deep in his heart, he had to keep her by his side. Even if she was like a personal item, even if it was damaged, he had to do it himself. Jiang Milan's 8 years in the Ling family was too warm. She cared for everything. Compared to Wen Qingwan, it was better. It even made him admit that she was the mistress of the family. So when the bloody truth was revealed later, he couldn't accept it. Such a warm-looking woman had done such a vicious thing to his mother. Then could it be that Yi Huanyan, a woman who had the same blood as her, was the same? The more he looked at Yi Huanyan's innocent smile, the more he suspected that under that innocent and harmless appearance, there was a vicious and rotten heart. He was eager to verify it, but he was afraid of the truth, no matter what kind of truth it was. It had been a year. While torturing her, he had never been at peace. Lanjiang City's Civil Affairs Bureau opened at 7:30 a.m. and welcomed the first couple to get their marriage certificate. The people in the office had just started working. When they were changing in the lounge, they heard their colleagues say that the two of them had been waiting at the door all night. They even took it as a joke and spread it around the office. Young people nowadays were really hot-blooded. They got along with each other. Two people come closer and smile. Yi Huanyan was standing beside Ling Han. When she heard this, she was slightly stunned. Her footsteps could only be seen with a magnifying glass. The photographer helplessly put down the camera and frowned at this strange couple. One had a cold face, and the other had a bulging belly. She should have been pregnant for a long time. If they were supposed to be happy, they were at a loss. If people didn't know better, they would think that the two of them were forced to get married by a knife to their necks. You two smile. It doesn't look good with such a straight face. Yi Huanyan was at a loss. Suddenly her wrist was grabbed. She was taken a small step to the side by a force. Her shoulder leaned against Ling Han's arm. She looked up in surprise, but saw that Ling Han was still looking at the camera with a cold expression. It was as if he was talking to the air. His voice was very low, but Yi Huanyan heard it clearly. Don't you know how to act? Don't you know how to smile? People who don't know better will think that it's a funeral. Yi Huanyan's heart skipped a beat. When she looked up again, she tried to force a smile at the camera, revealing a somewhat bitter smile. Chapter 237. When the shutter sounded, a faint smile suddenly appeared on that cold face, adding a bit of warmth to the solemn atmosphere of the Civil Affairs Bureau that was rarely seen in 100 years. The staff in the office used a machine to seal the marriage certificate. There were 2 copies of the bright red marriage certificate. They slowly pushed it in front of the two of them and sincerely wished them well. I wish the two of you a happy marriage. Yi Huanyan held the marriage certificate. Her eyes were filled with uncontrollable joy as she whispered, "Thank you." The man beside her got up and left without saying a word. She turned around and met the staff's strange gaze. She could only smile awkwardly. Holding the 2 marriage certificates, she quickly turned around and chased after him. Yi Huanyan originally thought that they were going to the hospital, but when they were about to reach Jinjiang Court, she realized that was not the way to the hospital. She asked hesitantly, "Aren't we going to the hospital?" Ling Han looked straight ahead. His hands were on the steering wheel as he sped up. "It's fine if you don't want to rest. Do you think Grandma can take the same torture as you?" Seeing Yi Huanyan's stiff expression, he suddenly felt a little stuffy in his chest. He said in a low voice, "The hospital called and said that Grandma fell asleep after we left. She hasn't woken up yet, and asked us to go in the afternoon." At the mention of Grandma, Yi Huanyan's eyes were filled with deep worry again. Ling Han had a strange feeling in his heart. Yi Huanyan was probably the only one in the world who could empathize with him when it came to Grandma's hospitalization. Although he was unwilling to admit it, Yi Huanyan was indeed the only one who was in the same situation as him. In other words, Yi Huanyan's pain was worse than his, because other than Grandma, she had no other family in this world. He still had Wen Qingwan's family. Although they had not been in contact with each other often, Grandpa and Grandma were still alive. The Wen family was a big family with many family members and many cousins. Therefore, Yi Huanyan should be sad. Once Grandma was gone, she would no longer have an umbrella to protect her. Thinking of this, Ling Han felt that her sadness was just a kind of self-pity, and his gaze became colder. In the Jinjiang Park Villa, after Lingling had sent the household registration booklet, and identification cards to the Civil Affairs Bureau overnight. She had expected them to come back in the morning. After preparing breakfast, she busied herself with lunch in the kitchen. Ling Ling was sad that the old lady was sick, but when she found out that Yi Huanyan and Ling Han had gotten married, she was really happy for Yi Huanyan. Ling Ling was a traditional woman, so she naturally thought that the biggest promise a man could make to a woman was to give her a marriage contract. After returning home, Yi Huanyan forced herself to eat 2 mouthfuls of breakfast before going upstairs to rest. Not long after she climbed into bed, she heard the sound of the door next door opening. She guessed that Ling Han had also gone upstairs after eating. Her heart tightened. She didn't know what she was expecting and what she was afraid of. She stared at the revolving door between the 2 rooms absent-mindedly for a while. Finally, she was sure that it would not move. Then she slowly closed her eyes. Her black hair spread on the pillow, and she fell asleep soon. Recently, she had been sleepy and couldn't do enough work. Fortunately, Ji Xiaoye came back from a business trip and took over her work. Su Mang simply let her go home to rest. Ji Xiaoye still didn't know that she was pregnant. After coming back, she was busy with work. She only talked with Su Nianhua twice on the phone. She talked about some interesting things about her encounter with Su Nianhua in Yunnan. In the 2/3 of the master bedroom, that was separated by a wall, a flickering flame flickered on a lighter. A tall and straight figure stood in front of the window. There was a freshly lit cigarette between his slender middle finger and index finger. The cigarette butt glowed with orange light, and the smoke curled up. On the bedside table was the marriage certificate. The cover was red, which was very eye-catching. Next to the bedside table was a safe. The door was open, revealing a diary with a broken corner and a craft paper bag containing the bloody truth of many years ago. After smoking a cigarette, he turned around and slowly squatted down in front of the safe. He took out the craft paper bag. After unsealing it, he frowned and looked at it for a while. In the end, he didn't take out the things that he had already memorized by heart. In the dark night, there was a crackling sound, and the flame jumped. The craft paper bag finally began to burn from the corner in the flame of the lighter. The flame spread quickly. Ling Han loosened his hand, and the burning craft paper bag fell into a huge iron box in front of the bed. With a muffled bang, the flame jumped violently twice and burned more and more fiercely. His bony fingers touched the faded diary, rubbed it twice, and then threw it into the brazier. The light of the fire shone on his face, making him look incomparably gentle and warm, but his eyes were cold and could not be melted. People will always struggle to do things that deceive themselves and others. There are many things in this world that you can't get rid of just by trying to do them. In the hospital, the old lady was overjoyed when she saw the marriage certificate of Ling Han and Yi Huanyan. Her pale face had a rare bit of red. She held the 2 people's hands and said good things. Finally, I can see you 2 get married. I have no regrets." The old lady smiled until her wrinkles were squeezed together. From the moment she entered the door, Yi Huanyan tried to smile. She used all her strength to make herself look more festive. She was combing her grandmother's hair and preparing to take her out of the hospital. The notice of critical illness had been issued many times. Everyone knew that if the operation continued, it would only increase the old lady's pain. The old lady didn't want to, and the doctor also suggested that it was better to let her live according to her wishes. The old lady wanted to stay at home. "The hospital is too quiet. I don't like it." The old lady pouted and looked dissatisfied. "Look at this quilt. There's no color at all. You just got married. I have to go back and help you with the wedding." Yi Huanyan's combing action froze slightly. She subconsciously looked up at Ling Han's face. He looked as usual and was talking to the doctor. Aunt Zhang said something to him. He nodded, then turned and walked toward the old lady with gentle eyes. "Grandma, everything is packed. During this time, Yin Yin and I will go back to the old house to accompany you." The old lady looked up at him and said with a smile, "You have your career. Go to work. Don't bother to take care of me. I have Aunt Zhang and Yin Yin. I feel much better now. I can still hold my great-grandchildren." In the ward, everyone laughed. Even the doctor laughed sincerely for 10 minutes. No matter what emotions others had, Yi Huanyan didn't care. From the beginning to the end, she only cared about one person's emotions. Why was he frowning? Why was he in a daze? Why was he angry? Why was he upset? She thought too much, but the more she thought, the more she didn't understand. In the old house of the Ling family, Yi Huanyan was supported by a servant as soon as she got out of the car. Before she could see the scene in front of her clearly, the crackling sound of firecrackers suddenly exploded. She was so shocked that she staggered and covered her ears for a long time before she came back to her senses. After the firecrackers finished, a cloud of smoke curled up. The big red word 11 and the red silk decorations on the old house became clearer and clearer. It was more festive than the New Year. Yi Huanyan stared blankly and turned around in surprise. The old lady was supported by Aunt Zhang and looked at the two people beside her with a smile. I know you are busy, but the wedding can't be missed. Chapter 238. There were many children at the door, attracted by the sound of the firecrackers. Aunt Zhang seemed to have been prepared. She handed out wedding candies, and everyone was playing happily. Yi Huanyan was a little dazed. For a moment, she thought that this was really a carefully prepared wedding, and she was just waiting for her husband to hold her hand and officially bring her into this old house that she was already very familiar with. Ling Han's voice came from beside her. Grandma, let me help you back to the house first. There's too much smoke here. You just need to hold Yin Yan. I have Aunt Zhang. Old Madame Fu pushed him and gave him a look. Yi Huanyan held the hem of her coat until her palms felt warm. He really walked over and held her hand, pulling her to stand side by side. He looked at old Madame Fu and the crowd with a gentle smile. A child about 12 or 13 years old asked loudly with candy in his mouth, Is this a wedding? Who's the bride? Aunt Zhang pointed at Yi Huanyan and said with a smile, Little you, what's wrong with your eyes? Isn't this the bride? The little boy, who was called Little You, looked at Yi Huanyan and said in surprise, Wow, is the bride pregnant with a baby? Of course. After getting confirmation, the child looked at Yi Huanyan and Ling Han for a while, and his eyes narrowed into two slits. The bride is so beautiful. The baby will be very beautiful in the future. This child has such a sweet mouth. Give this child a red packet. Old Madame Fu smiled and leaned on Aunt Zhang overjoyed. Seeing that Little You got a red packet for saying auspicious words, 4 or 5 children looked at each other and swarmed up. They surrounded Ling Han and Yi Huanyan and exploded like a swarm of bees. They kept saying things like, 100 years of bliss, have a child soon, and grow old together. They even said, good luck. Ling Han was stunned in the crowd. At first he was a little annoyed, but because they were all teenagers, he didn't want to lose his temper. Instead, he seemed to be at a loss. Yi Huanyan saw that Ling Han didn't make things difficult for her, and the children were very cute. When she thought of the baby in her stomach, her pale face was immediately dyed with a hint of red. After getting out of the car, there was a rare joy at the entrance. How nice! Old Madame Fu stood on the steps and looked at the couple not far away. The more she looked, the happier she became. Before the new year, she had already asked Aunt Zhang to start preparing for the wedding. She was just waiting for the 2 children to agree. At most, it would take half a month for the wedding to be completed. However, no matter how much she planned, she didn't expect that after Yin Yin went to prison, her body couldn't take it anymore. This wedding could only go through a simple ceremony now. After entering the door of the Ling family, it was equivalent to the Ling family acknowledging Yi Huanyan's status as the daughter-in-law of the Ling family. Aunt Zhang led Yi Huanyan back to the room to change. When they came back, she was completely dressed as a Chinese bride. Her beautiful black hair was coiled up with gold ornaments inlaid with coral beads, and a pair of jade earrings dangled from her earlobes. She was wearing a bright red Chinese-style coat, and an expensive piece of nephrite jade was tied around her waist. Her green tassels swayed slightly as she walked, and on her feet was a pair of delicate peony-embroidered shoes. Her entire outfit was personally chosen by the old lady. Ling Han stood at the entrance of the courtyard. He was already impatient from waiting. When he looked up, he saw Yi Huanyan walking over in this outfit. Her footsteps were light, and her accessories jingled. In addition to her gentle temperament, there was no one more suitable for this Chinese wedding outfit than her. Aunt Zhang saw it clearly from the side. She memorized the absent-minded look in Ling Han's eyes. She planned to secretly tell old Madame Fu later. "Young master, why don't you hurry up and pull Yin Yan? Old Madame Fu is waiting for the two of you to serve tea." Aunt Zhang reminded him. Then she went to the front hall first with a smile. Ling Han instantly returned to his senses. He frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "It's just a wedding. Is there a need to dress like this?" Yi Huanyan's face darkened a little. She pursed her lips tightly and didn't say anything. A strong tug on her wrist made her stagger. Before she could steady herself, she heard him impatiently urge her. "Why aren't you leaving? Who are you standing here for?" The front hall was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. The windows were pasted with large red flowers with the word "She" on them. Old Madame Fu was sitting in an armchair. She had also changed into a dark red qipao and a gray fur vest. Her entire person was elegant and elegant. One look, and one could tell that she was from a prestigious family. She even put on makeup, which was rare, to cover up some of her gray complexion. When she saw Ling Han holding Yi Huanyan's hand enter, a smile suddenly appeared on her face. She looked at the two of them and said regretfully, "Originally, there was a set of men's clothes. Unfortunately, it was too late when I chose the style. The tailor wasn't done yet." What a pity. Ling Han had changed his clothes before entering the door. He had a respectful appearance. When he heard that, he said indifferently, "During a wedding, people usually only look at the bride. The groom's presence is not high. You don't have to worry about it. Her clothes add up to at least 1,000,000 yuan, right? She has earned enough attention. Wasn't that right?" Just the golden hairpin hairbuyao from Linfeng House and the Hutian jade pendant on her waist already cost more than 1,000,000 yuan. Not to mention the Chinese wedding dress that was handmade by Lanjiang's 100 Years Embroidery House. The old madam glared at Ling Han. "Where did the attention come from? Yin Yin didn't even have a guest when she married you. This is my biggest regret now. Not to mention 1,000,000 yuan, even if it was 10,000,000 yuan, I would still be willing. You brat, don't take it for granted." Ling Han lowered his eyes. "Yes, it's your money anyway. I won't lose anything. You sure know how to plan, brat." The old madam laughed. Everyone in the room also laughed, and the atmosphere in the room became more lively. Seeing that he was still in the mood to joke, Yi Huanyan couldn't help but feel a little comforted. She also tried to make herself believe that he was not so unwilling to marry her. While they were talking, Aunt Zhang had already brought the blue and white porcelain teacups and a tray over and handed them to the two of them. Yi Huanyan held the teacup and knelt on the soft cushion in front of the old madam. She whispered, "Grandma, have some tea." After the old madam drank the tea, she pulled out a bulging red packet from under the chair and stuffed it into her hands. She smiled very kindly. "Good child, quickly get up." Ling Han also served the tea, took the red packet, and stood side by side with Yi Huanyan. "Grandma, don't make it too complicated. The doctor said that you still need to rest more." Ling Han guessed that there was more to come, so he reminded the old madam to rest. The old madam raised her hand to signal that he didn't need to say anything. Then she looked at the door and coughed twice. A trace of sadness appeared in her eyes. "Have you invited them all?" Aunt Zhang nodded. She looked at the door and saw a figure in the distance. "Old Zhang is here." Yi Huanyan looked at the door in confusion. When she saw the things in the hands of Uncle Zhang and the servant behind him, the blood drained from her face. "It's a big day. You two should also serve tea to your parents." The old madam's voice echoed in her mind again and again. Yi Huanyan only felt a buzz, and her mind was in chaos. Chapter 239. The Ling family had been a prominent family for hundreds of years. Although they were buried in the cemetery after death, they still followed the rules of the ancestral hall. They had to set up a memorial tablet in the ancestral hall to worship incense. Uncle Zhang was holding Ling Dongming and Wen Qingwan's memorial tablets in his hands. Wen Qingwan was Ling Dongming's first wife, so she was naturally buried in the ancestral hall after death. Jiang Milin was a second wife, so she didn't have the right to enter the ancestral hall. There weren't many people in society who cared about this now. People were already dead, so who would care about whether or not they could enter the ancestral hall? Yi Huanyan vaguely understood the old lady's intentions. A chill ran through her body, and her hands and feet turned cold. Aunt Zhang pulled her to the center of the hall. She looked at Ling Han in panic. She could clearly feel that the emotions he tried so hard to control were collapsing bit by bit. When Ling Dongming's memorial tablet stood side by side with Wen Qingwan, the docility he tried so hard to show finally disappeared completely. Grandma didn't know the inside story. When she saw the memorial tablet, she sighed. Dongming is my only son. When Qingwan was alive, although her personality was a little too cold, she left the Ling family's only heir. She was a good mother. She didn't do anything wrong in all these years in the Ling family. It's just that she left at a young age. Fortunately, there was Milin later on, who gave me a lot of comfort. It was a pity. Aunt Zhang comforted her, and the sadness in the old lady's eyes dissipated a little. Fortunately, Yin Yin will be family with us in the future. They will be happy to know in the netherworld. Yi Huanyan didn't dare to move as she looked at Ling Han. Her face was as pale as paper. Aunt Zhang stuffed the teacup into her hands and asked her to serve Wen Qingwan. What right do you have to serve her? Ling Han's cold voice resounded in the hall, shocking everyone in the hall into silence. Not a single sound could be heard. Yi Huanyan's body was cold. She didn't know what to do with the teacup in her hand. The old lady was stunned for a few seconds. She looked at Ling Han angrily. What are you saying? Is this right? How is she not qualified? She's already your wife. Shouldn't she serve tea to your mother-in-law? Ling Han didn't respond. His cold gaze swept over Yi Huanyan's face, chilling her to the core. Do you think I'm qualified or not? Yi Huanyan? Yi Huanyan held the teacup. Even though the teacup was hot, she still felt cold all over. She gritted her teeth, and the corners of her eyes were all red. Even though her heart was full of devastation, she still forced herself to speak. Han, we are getting married today. Don't make Grandma angry. Grandma held onto the armchair and looked at Ling Han. She said angrily, What do you mean? What are the two of you doing? Yin Yin is already the daughter-in-law of the Ling family. It is natural for her to serve tea to her mother-in-law. Why are you making a fuss? Are you trying to anger me to death? Ling Han looked at the old lady and said word by word, Grandma, I can promise you anything. I can promise you anything, except for this. Why not? The old lady was so angry that her blood boiled. She gripped the armchair so hard that her knuckles turned white. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone looked at each other. Ling Han didn't seem to have any intention of backing down. Yi Huanyan almost bit through her lips. Seeing that the old lady was already trembling with anger, she was afraid that something would happen again. She made up her mind, bent her knees, and knelt in front of Wen Qingwan's memorial tablet. She held up the teacup and said loudly, Mother, your daughter-in-law Yi Huanyan is here to serve you tea. The hall was silent. A few seconds later, Aunt Zhang rushed forward to take the teacup and put it in front of Wen Qingwan's memorial tablet. At this moment, the old lady finally smiled. She stood up and helped Yi Huanyan up. Good child, that's right. Yi Huanyan slowly raised her head and looked stiffly behind the old lady. That pair of cold eyes had already infused all the coldness and hostility in his body into her body. It was as if in the next second, as long as the old lady left, he would eat her alive. She clearly saw his lips move twice and vaguely said, You're looking for death. The dragon and phoenix candles were burning brightly. The bright red double happiness candles covered the windows. Yi Huanyan was escorted into Ling Han's room by the servants. The old lady only stood at the door for a while before she was helped away by Aunt Zhang, because she wasn't feeling well. Only a maid named Ame was left to lead the servants to complete the rest of the ceremony. Once the old lady left, Ame smiled and brought 2 small wine glasses to the table. She smiled and said, The newlyweds should drink cross-cupped wine. Yi Huanyan was about to reach out to take it. A clear and sharp shattering sound rang in the room, accompanied by the servants' cries. The two delicate glasses fell to the floor. One of them had a corner broken and rolled to the door. Get lost. Ling Han raised his head and looked at the frightened Ame. His face was cold and indifferent. Ame froze in place, not daring to move. Yi Huanyan had expected this and said softly, "You should go back first. It's too late. You should rest." Even the stupidest person would know that it was not a good time to stay. The servants scattered like birds and beasts, leaving Ame standing in the yard for a while after closing the door. She heard a clear growl from the room. "Yi Huanyan, what right do you have to kneel before my mother? What right do you have?" She could hear the sound of a woman struggling. Cough, cough. It was as if someone was strangling her neck. She wanted to scream but couldn't. Ame's expression changed, and she hurriedly ran out of the yard. The red candles were shining brightly, but the room was in a mess. The decorations on the table, such as dates and longans, were all smashed to the ground. Ling Han grabbed Yi Huanyan's neck with both hands and pressed her against the wall. His eyes were full of fierceness. "You got what you wanted? Yi Huanyan, you finally got what you wanted? Are you very proud of yourself?" Yi Huanyan only felt that her eyes were flickering. Her hands hit his arms and chest helplessly, trying to escape from his shackles. Cough, cough. "I didn't. You got the position of Mrs. Ling, yes, but I'm warning you. You have nothing but this title. Except for the people in this house, no one will know that you are married to me. You cough, cough. You and the bastard in your belly will always be shameful things. You will never be able to change your situation." His low roar reverberated in the room and repeated in Yi Huanyan's muddle-headed mind. Bastard, he still didn't believe that the child was his. Sparkling and translucent tears flowed from the corners of Yi Huanyan's eyes. She looked at Ling Han with a gaze of despair, without the slightest bit of expectation. "What bastard are you talking about?" The sudden sound of the door opening was accompanied by a questioning voice with an unstable aura. Yi Huanyan only felt that her neck was light. She slid down the wall to the floor. She looked up blankly. When she saw who it was, she murmured in a hoarse voice, "Grandma." The figure in front of her swayed. She only saw the old and tottering figure standing at the door for a few seconds, and then fall to the ground. "Old madam! Old madam!" The scene was chaotic. His entire body stiffened. Think clearly about what you should say and what you shouldn't say. There was a trace of pain in her eyes. What did he think she would say? "I don't care who this child is. He's mine now. Do you understand?" From the moment she had this child, she had always hoped that he would be willing to acknowledge this child and be willing to believe her. But when he finally said that this child was his, he had no choice but to do so. He gritted his teeth and looked unwilling but helpless. It was as if he had used a lot of pain to convince himself to endure this. Her eyes were red. There were too many things she wanted to say to explain, but she didn't know where to start. In the end, she changed to a silent attitude and moved her heavy body into the ward. It was a race against time. She couldn't argue with him at this juncture. "Grandma." In front of the hospital bed, Yi Huanyan choked up and couldn't speak. The old lady was already on the ventilator and couldn't speak clearly. Yi Huanyan had no choice but to move closer to her mouth. She could only hear her weak and old voice coming intermittently from the oxygen mask. "Yin Yin. You. The child in your stomach. Is it a Hans? Don't lie to Grandma." Yi Huanyan's face stiffened. Tears welled up in her eyes and she choked. "Grandma, even you don't believe me?" The old lady held her hand and said with difficulty, "Good child. Tell Grandma the truth. Grandma won't force you to get married. You and Ahan. Both should. Both have your own happiness." At this point, Yi Huanyan finally couldn't hold back her tears. Drops of tears fell on the back of the old lady's withered hand. She said with a sobbing tone, "Grandma, believe me. I only love him from the beginning to the end. How can the child in my belly not be his? Grandma." The old lady blinked weakly and held Yi Huanyan's hand tightly. She tried a few times, but in the end, she still couldn't speak. The nurse watched from the side through the protective glass and hurried into the ward. Okay, the patient should rest. Family members, please leave first. We'll call you again after a period of observation. Yi Huanyan staggered out of the ward. She held onto the wall outside the ward and cried until she was out of breath. In the ward, the old lady looked in her direction and opened her mouth. But before the people outside could see her lips, the dense fog had covered the oxygen mask, and they couldn't see what she was going to say. Aunt Zhang suddenly choked up. She wiped her tears with a handkerchief and helped Yi Huanyan to sit down. Miss Yin Yen, don't be sad. It's not that the old lady doesn't believe you. Yi Huanyan sobbed and looked up. Her eyes were full of disappointment. Aunt Zhang. But Grandma asked me about the child, and said that she shouldn't have forced us to get married. She's disappointed in me. Aunt Zhang sighed and wiped her tears. She said seriously, the old lady probably saw that you and young master don't get along well. She couldn't help but think of Sir and young master's mother. It has nothing to do with you and young master. Yi Huanyan looked at Aunt Zhang in a daze. Uncle Ling and Auntie? Auntie Zhang nodded. Old Madam probably didn't mention it before. Back then, Sir wasn't very willing to marry Madam, but at that time, Old Master had just left, and the Ling family's business was facing some difficulties. For the sake of business, and also because Old Madam saw Madam and thought that she was good, she took the initiative to decide on their marriage. In the following 10 years, the couple lived together in harmony. Unfortunately, there was always a lot of awkwardness and estrangement between them. Wen Qingwan was the daughter of a rich family and the youngest daughter of the Wen family. She was spoiled since she was young and didn't know much about the ways of the world. Therefore, after marrying into the Ling family, she didn't get along well with the old lady. Not long after the marriage, she took the initiative to move out of the old mansion. Because of this, the old lady was angry with her for several years. She didn't want to see her during the holidays. During those years, the old lady saw that her son was not living a happy life. Even though Huan Yu's business was flourishing, the smile on her son's face was getting fewer and fewer. Wen Qingwan had a sensitive personality and liked to keep things to herself. After a while, her health deteriorated. Hence, Ling Han only finished junior high school in the country and was sent abroad early to study with Wen Qingwan's sister in the family. Chapter 241. During those years when the old madam was in good health, she had always been unwilling to admit that the marriage between Ling Dongming and Wen Qingwan was a regret in her heart. However, after Jiang Milan married into the Ling family, she did not even investigate her background and easily agreed to her son's request. From the beginning, she had been very accepting and had already expressed her regret. If she hadn't forced her son to marry Wen Qingwan, perhaps Ling Dongming would have been happier all these years, and Ling Han wouldn't have been sent abroad to study. Therefore, on the wedding night, Ling Han and Yi Huanyan were arguing in the bridal chamber. It really hit her biggest weakness in her life, and it was also her biggest regret. Perhaps she shouldn't have forced Ling Han to marry Yi Huanyan in the beginning. However, what was done. Even if it was a resentful couple, there was probably no turning back. Aunt Zhang didn't say much, but her continuous sighs allowed Yi Huanyan to understand the old lady's feelings. She felt terrible, but it wasn't because of her own situation. She felt terrible because the old lady had to feel regret for her grandchildren before she passed away. At noon the next day, the nurse came out of the ward and called Aunt Zhang in. She didn't know what she said, but she quickly came out. After that, the door of the ward was closed, and no one was allowed to enter. In the afternoon, Aunt Zhang brought a lawyer into the ward. Through the glass window, she only saw the old lady reach out her trembling hand to sign something on a document. After that, she felt relieved and called Ling Han and Yi Huanyan in. At this time, the old lady had already taken off her oxygen mask and seemed to be in better spirits. But the doctor's words made everyone dare not let their guard down. Yi Huanyan's eyes were red, but she gritted her teeth and refused to cry, afraid that the old lady would be upset. Yin Yen, come to Grandma. The old lady moved her fingers and waved at her and Ling Han. The two of them guarded her left and right. Yi Huanyan didn't dare to speak, afraid that she couldn't help but cry. Ling Han knew that everything was a foregone conclusion. Other than regret, his eyes were full of sadness. Grandma, don't worry. I will manage the family business well in the future and live a good life. The old lady smiled. Her smile was very loving. I knew you would. She raised her hand and put Yi Huanyan's hand in Ling Han's hand and shook it hard. You blame Grandma for forcing you to get married? Yi Huanyan subconsciously glanced at Ling Han. He shook his head with a serious expression. Grandma, I don't blame you. You're doing this for me. The old lady glanced at Yi Huanyan again. She suddenly sighed and forced herself to say, but I blame myself. Without waiting for the two of them to console her, her gaze fell on the suited lawyer at the end of the bed. Her voice was hoarse as she said, I've already asked Lawyer Luo to draft a certificate regarding the inheritance. Take a look at the contents of the inheritance, and then you can both sign it. After saying such a long speech in one breath, the old lady couldn't help but cough twice. The nurse beside her hurriedly helped her put on the oxygen mask. Yi Huanyan tightly held the old lady's hand and refused to let go. Ling Han turned around and glanced at the lawyer. The lawyer handed the document in his hand to Ling Han. Ling Han glanced at it and seemed to see something. He suddenly furrowed his brows and hesitated for a few seconds. In the end, he picked up the pen and signed his name. Then he handed it to Yi Huanyan. His expression was cold, and there seemed to be a hint of contempt, but he didn't say a word. Yi Huanyan stared blankly at the contents of the inheritance distribution certificate, with a stiff expression on her face. A line of words was written in the note of the inheritance transfer. The above assets will be frozen for 1 year. After 1 year, they will all be transferred to the name of the child in Yi Huanyan's womb. The condition is that the child's DNA test results will confirm that he is of the Ling family's bloodline 1 year later. If the DNA test results do not match, the above assets will be donated to the Red Cross. The inheritance certificate froze hundreds of millions of assets under the old lady of the Ling family. Regardless of whether the old lady believed the child's identity or not, she used the most desperate method to protect the mother and child. At the very least, Ling Han had to wait until the child in her womb was safely born. This child had to be of the Ling family's bloodline. Otherwise, no one would be able to get this huge amount of assets. Yi Huanyan wasn't a fool. She had been in the industry for so many years. There was no way she couldn't see the meaning behind this document. This was the old lady's last protection for her. Grandma. Yi Huanyan's hand that was holding the document trembled slightly. The old lady held her other hand tightly and said shakily, Good girl, sign it. There was a hint of confusion in her eyes. It seemed that she was starting to lose her mind. However, she still stared at Yi Huanyan, waiting for her to sign the document. Hurry up and sign it. Miss Yin Yin, Aunt Zhang urged from the side. Yi Huanyan only felt that her eyes were blurred by tears. In a haze, she picked up the pen and signed her name. She never felt that her name was so difficult to write, nor did she feel that a pen could weigh 1,000 pounds. When she signed the last word, she suddenly felt a pressure on her shoulder. She trembled as she raised her head, only to see the old lady's skinny arm hanging limply on her shoulder. It trembled twice and lost all its vitality in this life. The doctor quickly stepped forward. After checking the situation, he regretfully took off his mask and told everyone in an almost numb tone, My condolences. Yi Huanyan held the old lady's hand and tried for a long time, but she realized that she couldn't cry at all. Her tears seemed to have dried up. Her eyes stared blankly at the motionless figure on the bed and gradually revealed a hollow expression. The doctor came to move the old lady's bed away, but he found that he couldn't move her fingers. She gripped that hand tightly as she stared straight at that old face. Images flashed through her mind one after another. All these years, the old lady had taken care of her, cared for her, and even told her before she died. She couldn't let go of all of this. The lawyer put away the inheritance document, bowed to the old lady, and then to Ling Han. He respectfully and politely left. The words he said before he left didn't enter Yi Huanyan's ears, but it fell clearly in everyone's ears. Everyone, my condolences. In a year, At this time, I will come to find the two of you and use the young master's DNA report to open the frozen inheritance. The doctors and nurses stood in front of the bed. A nurse tried to move Yi Huanyan's hand away, but after several attempts, she finally looked up at the people around her. Aunt Zhang was sobbing so hard that she couldn't speak. She didn't have the strength to comfort Yi Huanyan. Ling Han was the only one left. His tall figure standing by the bed was as cold as a statue. He stared at the old lady on the bed for a long time. Then his gaze slowly fell on Yi Huanyan. She was still wearing the bright red wedding dress, which stood out among the pale and monotonous colors in the room. It stung his eyes. Yi Huanyan, to what extent do you want to put on an act? He said indifferently. You already got what you wanted. There's no need to pretend, right? Chapter 242. Ling Han didn't hide his words from anyone. He didn't seem to mind airing his dirty linen in public. Or maybe he deliberately wanted to embarrass Yi Huanyan in front of everyone. He was disgusted by Yi Huanyan's hypocritical appearance. No matter what she said to her grandmother, the final transfer of the inheritance had exposed all her motives. Now that her goal had been achieved, she was still acting here. It only made him feel that this show was finally over. The faces of all the doctors present stiffened. They stood in front of the bed and didn't dare to breathe. Yi Huanyan gritted her teeth and finally let go of the old lady's wrists. It wasn't because of Ling Han's words, but because she finally felt that her grandma's body had completely turned cold. There was no longer any warmth that could warm her. From this moment on, there would be no family in this world who loved her. Ling Han, however, thought that his words had hit her soft spot. He laughed coldly and left decisively. The sound of the hospital beds pulley rubbing against the ground came from the room and gradually faded away. Aunt Zhang squatted down and whispered something in her ear, then left. In such a large intensive care unit, she was the only one left. She was wearing an expensive bright red wedding dress, and the gold jewelry on her head jingled. She staggered and moved, and the jade pendant on her waist, which was worth 1,000,000 yuan, fell to the ground and instantly broke into two halves. Looking at the broken jade pendant, Yi Huanyan only felt as if there was a bloody smell in her nose. Countless kinds of grief surged into her heart, and her blood surged. With a wah sound, she finally cried. In this bleak ward, the sound of crying was so shrill that no one dared to stop. All of this was like a joke. 3 days later, at the funeral, there were many guests who came to pay their condolences. Those who came and went were all famous people. They wore black dresses and placed a bunch of yellow or white chrysanthemums in front of the huge black and white photo. There was an endless stream of men and women. The Ling family was a big family. Even though there were few relatives in the main family, there were many collateral relatives. Except for Chris, who was accompanying second young mistress in the United States with the baby, Ling Dongyu's family had all come back. Ling Zhan was wearing a black suit and stood beside Ling Han with his two sisters. Ling Han wore mourning clothes and a white flower on his chest. He stood in front of the black and white photo frame and bowed to every person who came. Yi Huanyan wore a black dress and a coat to cover her pregnant belly. Accompanied by Aunt Zhang, she stood behind Ling Li and Ling Shui. Her thin figure was almost invisible in the Ling family. She stared at the huge black and white photo in a daze. For the past 2 days, she had been in a trance. She dreamed of all the things that had happened in the past few years. She thought that the pain of losing her mother 2 years ago would never happen again. But she never thought that the world would always use cruel methods to temper all of one's willpower. Even if that little bit of willpower was clearly just a string that was stretched taut. Ling Li turned around and stole a glance at her. He reached out and squeezed her palm. Sister, don't be sad. She wanted to say that at the funeral 2 years ago, but at that time, she was young and immature. She couldn't even bring herself to say a word of comfort. Yi Huanyan looked like she had lost her soul. She continued to look at the black and white photo in a daze. Ling Li was about to say something, but his sister tugged at him and signaled for him to look up. Ling Li followed Ling Shui's gaze and frowned. A slim woman stood in front of the old lady's portrait. She wore a black gown and was respectfully bowing and offering flowers. When she turned around, her face was that of the woman who often appeared in various entertainment newspapers with Ling Han. Ling Li's heart skipped a beat. He instinctively turned around to look at Yi Huanyan's face. However, he realized that Yi Huanyan didn't seem to have any reaction. She was stunned. Sister. The mournful music in the auditorium was like a heavy hammer, hitting people's hearts again and again. When Ling Li reached out to hold Yi Huanyan's hand, he seemed to have touched a chord in her heart. Ding! Following the sudden rise and fall of the mournful music, Yi Huanyan's thin body fell down lightly. She didn't move at all. Ling Li exclaimed, Sister. Fortunately, the mournful music was so loud that Ling Han couldn't see or hear anything from where he was standing. When he heard the sound, Ling Han frowned and turned around to look. Before he could react, he heard Sheng Anren's voice in his ear. I'll go take a look. You can't leave here. Continue with your work. He couldn't leave the condolence ceremony. Thinking that Ling Zhan, Ling Li, and the others were behind him, he followed Sheng Anren. It was a mess behind. Ling Li was young and couldn't support Yi Huanyan. Ling Zhan stepped forward to help. He helped Yi Huanyan to the lounge next to the auditorium and helped her lie down on the sofa. When he helped her lie down, Ling Zhan's gaze fell on Yi Huanyan's lower abdomen. He was stunned. He clenched his fingers and looked at Yi Huanyan in disbelief for a while before he turned his head away. Ling Li, stay with her. I have something to do. I'll go out first. Before Ling Li could see his reaction, he hurriedly escaped, as if he wanted to escape from a reality that he couldn't face. Sister. Ling Li patted her cheek, but there was no reaction. He suddenly became anxious. At this time, there was a sound of unhurried footsteps approaching from outside the door. Ling Li turned around, and his eyes suddenly became alert. Why are you here? What are you doing here? Sheng Anren came without makeup today. Her face was slightly pale, and she looked a little haggard, as if she was really too sad. As soon as she entered the door, she only glanced at Yi Huanyan, and then walked to the cabinet with the water dispenser. Her tone was very cold, and with a bit of contempt. What can I do? There are so many people outside. Little sister, don't be so conspiratorial. Han just asked me to come and see if you need help. I don't need your help. You can go out. Ling Li's natural intuition told him that the woman in front of him was not a good person. She's in shock. If you don't wake her up soon, something big will happen. Sheng Anren came over with a glass of water and looked at Ling Li. Are you going to let her die? She won't die. I'll call my dad. Although she said so, Ling Li didn't dare to leave casually. She didn't believe the woman in front of her. She didn't know what she would do to Yi Huanyan. Don't bother. I have a way. Sheng Anren raised the corner of his mouth and smiled very gently. No need for you. Don't worry, little sister. You're here. You're Ling Han's sister. If I really dared to do anything to Yi Huanyan, you can sue me. Won't I be miserable? There was some truth in what he said. Ling Li was a little hesitant. After hesitating for a while, she took a deep breath and decided to go all out. Anyway, she was a witness, so she wouldn't dare to do anything wrong. Well, give it a try. Okay. Sheng Anren raised his eyebrows, and there was a flash of insidiousness in his eyes. As soon as his voice fell, the disposable cup in Sheng Anren's hand was raised high. A huge splash of water burst out, cold to the bone, along Yi Huanyan's cheek and flowed into her neck. Her whole body quivered as she sat up in shock. What are you doing? Ling Li pushed Sheng Anren away. Are you crazy? Chapter 243. That bone-chilling feeling was like a wake-up call to Yi Huanyan, pulling her back from her muddle-headed nightmare. She opened her eyes suddenly and straightened up. Her hands and feet were cold, and her face was as white as paper. Ling Li held her shoulder and pointed at Sheng Anren and scolded. You vicious woman, what are you going to do? Sheng Anren snorted coldly. Didn't you want me to wake her up? Isn't she awake? Yi Huanyan stared at the paper cup in her hand tremblingly, and then looked down at her messy appearance. She knew what had happened without thinking. You shameless woman, don't think you're so great with my brother backing you up. I tell you, Lingli don't put you in my eyes. With that, Lingli stepped forward and raised his hand to slap her. Sheng Anren originally wanted to hide, but when Lingli raised his hand, she caught a glimpse of a familiar figure coming from the direction of the door. Her dodging action suddenly changed direction, and Lingli's slap on her cheek was forcefully slapped. Pa! The sound echoed in the spacious lounge. Lingli! A sullen voice came from the door. The man's deep voice mixed with the lingering sound of the slap, which made the lounge particularly cold. Before his voice died away, Lingli was pulled away. When he looked up, he saw Ling Han's angry look. Who taught you to hit people casually? Do you know what this is? Ling Han had never spoken to her so harshly before. She bit her lip and felt her nose sour. She didn't have time to explain and said angrily, "You've been blinded by this fox, brother." After saying this, she turned around and ran out of the lounge. Sheng Anren shrank in Ling Han's arms, looking very aggrieved, and whispered, "She's your sister. I didn't expect that she would really hit me." Yi Huanyan stood up with the help of the sofa and tried to explain, "It's not Ling Li's fault. She just stood up for me." Ling Han frowned. "Stand up for you?" At this moment, he noticed that Yi Huanyan's head, face and body were all wet. The temperature in the auditorium was low to begin with, and at this moment, her face had turned blue from the cold, and her shoulders were shivering uncontrollably. Yi Huanyan saw that he was looking at her in a daze. There seemed to be some concern in his eyes. She immediately felt warmth in her heart. Sheng Anren gritted her teeth and leaned into Ling Han's arms. She said aggrievedly, "Han, I still have work to do tonight. If my face is swollen, I'm afraid it will be difficult to explain. Those reporters will talk nonsense again. After the ceremony is over, you can accompany me to see the doctor." Yi Huanyan looked at Ling Han. She didn't know what she was expecting, just like many times before. After a long while, a cold voice sounded in the lounge. It was a familiar tone and a familiar voice. "It's not easy to deal with it if it's swollen. Go now." He held Sheng Anren in his arms, and his cold eyes swept over Yi Huanyan. Before he left, he only left a sentence without any warmth. "You're not needed here. Go back to where you belong." Every word was loud and clear. It was hard not to hear it clearly. It wasn't until Ling Han's figure disappeared at the door of the lounge that Yi Huanyan woke up. Her body went soft, as if all the strength in her body had been taken away, and she fell on the sofa. It turned out that she shouldn't have had any expectations for him. After the funeral, Ling Dongyu's family returned to the United States. Yi Huanyan was not feeling well, so she didn't send them off. Before leaving, Lingli took off a necklace from his neck and stuffed it into her hand. He said seriously, "This is the safety chain my mommy asked for in a Thai temple. Take it with you. I hope the baby can be born safely." Yi Huanyan held the chain and watched Ling Dongyu's family get in the car and disappear from the door of the old house. She felt her nose sour, but she couldn't shed a tear. Yi Huanyan didn't see Ling Han for the next few days. She helped Aunt Zhang pack up in the old house. She sealed the old lady's favorite things in boxes, and then the whole old house was empty. After the old lady left, Aunt Zhang and Uncle Zhang dismissed all the servants in the house. After that, they came to Yi Huanyan to resign. Yi Huanyan held her waist and said anxiously, "Aunt Zhang, Uncle Zhang, are you leaving too?" Aunt Zhang patted her hand. "Young master called yesterday and said he would pick you up tonight. No one will live in this house in the future. It's time for me and your Uncle Zhang to go home and retire, Mississippi. But isn't it good for you to still live here in the future? Miss Yin Yen, all good things must come to an end. I've been with old madam since I was young. Now that she's gone, I should return to where I belong. This place, it's heartbreaking to see." Since they had said this, Yi Huanyan couldn't force them to stay. She could only give Aunt Zhang and Uncle Zhang a lot of their salaries before letting them leave with peace of mind. That night, Xiaomu drove over as expected and took her to the villa in Jinjiang Park. When she got off the car, she was more straightforward than before. Xiaomu saw her through the door and asked hesitantly, "Aren't you going to ask me what Director Ling has been busy with recently?" She would usually ask a question or two. Yi Huanyan turned around. Her complexion was a bit haggard, and her expression was very indifferent. So what if I ask? It has nothing to do with me. Xiao Mu was startled as she watched her turn around again and enter the house. When a gust of wind blew, he even had the misconception that the wind could take her away with it. She was too thin. She didn't look like a pregnant woman. He knew that ever since she went to prison, she had sunk into depression. Xiao Mu stood in the wind with a gloomy expression in her eyes. Knowing that Yi Huanyan had returned, Lingling specially prepared a table full of dishes that Yi Huanyan usually liked. There were meat and vegetables, and she even made 3 kinds of soups, hot and sour, light and sweet. Your health is important. Miss Yi, eat more. Lingling originally prepared a bellyful of comforting words to persuade Yi Huanyan to eat, but she didn't expect her to wash her hands and sit in front of the table. She picked up her bowl and ate mouthful by mouthful. She ate all the dishes on the table one by one, and even had an extra bowl of rice than usual. Lingling, don't make so much in the future. You can't finish it all. Just eat the same as before. Lingling quickly nodded. Okay. After eating, Yi Huanyan went upstairs. After tidying up the table, Lingling carried the milk upstairs and sat by the bed to chat with Yi Huanyan. She was not a talkative person, but she was afraid that Yi Huanyan would continue to be depressed like this, so she had to find some topics to talk about with her. She stroked Yi Huanyan's stomach through the blanket and said with a smile, "The fetal movement has been very strong recently, right? The old folks say that those with strong fetal movements are usually boys. I think it must be a young master." Yi Huanyan smiled gently. "I hope it's a girl. A daughter is good too." Lingling giggled. A daughter is a mother's intimate little jacket. Speaking of children, Lingling had an idea. "Miss Yi, why don't I go shopping with you tomorrow? We can buy some clothes and shoes for the future little Mississippi. There's also a milk bottle and things like that. We should prepare in advance." Yi Huanyan was startled, and her wandering thoughts were pulled back by Lingling. Chapter 244. Ling Han sat behind his desk, and his originally calm expression creased his brows after hearing Xiao Mu's report. His tone abruptly turned frosty. "She really said that? She didn't ask anything?" Xiao Mu stood respectfully in front of his desk and nodded. "Yes." Secretary Yi entered the room without asking anything. Ling Han's face darkened. He seemed to have thought of something, and a trace of irritation appeared in his eyes. He waved his hand impatiently. "Got it. You can get off work now." The old lady's death made Ling Han's mind a mess. The will was even more thought-provoking. The hundreds of millions of assets in the will were all related to pleasure. He also hoped that the child in Yi Huanyan's belly was his, and that the frozen body could be unfrozen after the DNA test. The old lady was not an impulsive and emotional person. She would not use such a large amount of assets as a bargaining chip, just to protect Yi Huanyan. So could the child really be his? After the funeral, he didn't go to see Yi Huanyan. Firstly, Sheng Amren was slapped by Ling Li at the funeral. He was afraid that Sheng Amren would make a big deal out of it. He was also worried that Yi Huanyan's body couldn't take it, so he simply let her rest alone in the old house. The will and the inexplicable complicated matters in the company had made him very busy recently. He couldn't spare time to think too much about Yi Huanyan. It was late at night, but the lights in the president's office were still on. Xiao Dong was working overtime tonight. When she went downstairs, she met the security guard on patrol. The security guard glanced at the president's office upstairs. "Secretary Dong, President Ling is not leaving tonight again?" Xiao Dong nodded with a melancholy look in her eyes. She could feel that the boss was not in a good mood recently. He refused all business banquets and worked overtime every night for a week. If this continued, she felt that he would collapse. The security guard also sighed. "It's not easy to be rich. President Ling works too hard." At this time, a celebrity singing show on Lanjiang City TV station had just ended. Sheng Amren changed his clothes and walked out of the dressing room in a low profile. His agent and assistant protected him. When he walked to the corner of the TV station, he suddenly saw a familiar figure. "Is that Yin Guogua?" she asked. Her manager, Sister Sue, followed her gaze and saw a scantily clad figure entering another program on the TV station. Isn't that Night Chat? Sister Sue snorted. An internet streamer doing this kind of work under the guise of a sheep's head and dog meat can be considered to be at the end of the line. Night Chat was a late-night restricted live broadcast program launched by the Lonjiang City television station half a year ago. Most of them invited some amateurs or slightly famous actresses to participate. They wore revealing clothes and talked about some dirty jokes. The audience was basically some otakus or perverted uncles. Because of the financial backer behind it, this immoral program had not been banned. Fortunately, it was a late-night show, and there were not many people watching, so the higher-ups turned a blind eye to it. I heard that the sponsor is the second uncle of the TV station's CEO. He's very lecherous. None of the female artists who participated in this program could escape from him. I think this Nguogwa is probably... Sheng Anren frowned. She's so miserable now. Isn't that so? After President Ling banned her, all the major TV stations avoided her like the plague. No one dared to invite her. Only she changed her name and had the help of a sugar daddy. She barely managed to survive here and earn a little money. She won't have the chance to make a comeback in this lifetime. There was no sympathy in Sister Sue's tone. She felt that Nguogwa deserved it. She was so arrogant in front of their team before. There were several activities on the same stage. She was just a small internet celebrity, yet she dared to stand in the middle and block Sheng Anren's camera. A meaningful look flashed in Sheng Anren's eyes as he stared at the figure for a long time. Sister Sue. I think she seems to be living a little too comfortably now. Sister Sue was slightly stunned. What do you mean? Add fuel to the fire for her. That financial backer doesn't seem to be very good to her. Why don't we find a way to change her financial backer? Sister Sue was at a loss. Change? Who? What do you think of the bar owner we went to for a commercial performance before? Boss Zhu. Sister Sue's face stiffened as if she had thought of something disgusting. She felt uncomfortable all over. Sheng Anren curled the corners of his mouth and revealed a sinister smile. How could it be so easy for the person who had sinned against her to live an easy life? Ling Han was still too soft-hearted. 3 days later, the Entertainment Storm's reporters photographed the outdated internet celebrity, Nguogwa, with a bar owner. They behaved intimately, and it was suspected that they had broken up with the real estate tycoon behind them. Sheng Anren put down the newspaper and frowned. I think this boss Zhu treats her well. Sister Sue was helping her with her hair. When she heard this, she felt a cool breeze pass through her neck, and her hair stood on end. What can the reporters take? You didn't see the scene I saw at the bar that day. If those methods were used on Nguogwa, I'm afraid she would have lost half her life, even if she didn't die. That boss is a lunatic. Sheng Anren raised his eyebrows. Is that so? At least this boss Zhu is quite rich. He shouldn't treat her badly, right? Sister Sue didn't comment. But looking at the contents of the newspaper at this moment, she suddenly felt a little sympathy for Nguogwa. Well, that's it. Don't let the reporters wait for a long time. It's not good to write news like acting like a big shot in the newspaper. Sheng Anren stood up and turned around in front of the mirror. He felt very satisfied and went to the interview room. The reporters naturally had to ask her personal feelings again. There were many ambiguous answers. The reporters also knew her routine well, so they beat around the bush and dug a hole to ask where she wanted to get married in the future. Sheng Anren was already familiar with this kind of interview. Usually, he didn't let the reporters catch too many flaws in his words, but today he was in a particularly good mood. If I get married, I'd better go to the place my lover likes. It's best if it's a place where he has been. A short sentence was very attractive. As expected, the next day's news already had a rumor that the wedding date was approaching. In the Jinjianjuan villa, Yi Huanyan was a little numb when she saw the news of the day on the laptop. She only took a few glances, and then hurriedly closed it, and clicked on another interface. Su Nianhua's concert was coming soon, and the tickets were sold on the website. 10 years ago, she promised Lu Shun that she would go to his concert. Although she was pulled by Ji Xiaoya to see it once, There were too many circumstances at that time, so it didn't count. When Lingling came to call Yi Huanyan out, she saw her sitting in front of the laptop, motionless and lost in thought. She tried to pull out a cheerful smile and urged, "Miss Yi, it's time to go out. We agreed to go to the mall to pick out clothes for Little Mississippi." Chapter 245. Yi Huanyan had not gone shopping in Lanjiang City's largest Wani Mall in a long time, so she was dressed very simply. Compared to the city beauties and innocent girls, she always looked a little less colorful. Ling always tried to pull her into various brands and let her try on all kinds of clothes. Yi Huanyan looked at the beautiful colors and always shook her head, looking absent-minded. "Miss Yi, look at your clothes. They're all gray, white and black. You don't look very energetic. Why don't you buy something with a brighter color? Look at how beautiful you looked in your wedding dress that day. Why don't you buy this red one?" Ling held a wine-red dress with 3/4 sleeves in her hand and refused to let go. Yi Huanyan was at a loss. She sighed. "Look at my body and belly. Is it appropriate for me to wear this? I can't fit it in, can I?" Ling was slightly stunned. She opened her mouth, but did not say anything. Yi Huanyan stared at her face for a while, and suddenly understood what she was thinking. "How about this? You try it on. If it looks good, I'll buy it, okay?" Ling's eyes lit up. "Okay, it will definitely look good." The salesperson selected Ling's size and brought her into the fitting room. Not long after, Ling walked out in the dress. Her originally clean and fair face was complemented by the burgundy dress, making her look even more radiant. She twirled in front of Yi Huanyan a few times and said excitedly, "I haven't worn such a beautiful dress before. Miss Yi, you will definitely look good in it." Yi Huanyan looked at her carefully and smiled. "Okay, then this one. Wrap it up." She handed the card to the salesperson. Ling hurriedly said to the salesperson, "Take a smaller size." Then she turned to look at Yi Huanyan and giggled. "Miss Yi, you are thinner than me. You should wear this after you give birth. I'll go change out of this first." As soon as Ling left, Yi Huanyan stopped the salesperson and said gently, "Just take the size you just gave me." After buying the clothes, Yi Huanyan was dragged to the mother and baby store by Ling. Standing in front of all the clothes and shoes, Yi Huanyan felt like her heart was about to melt. The thought of the baby in her womb wearing these clothes in the future made her feel warm. After returning to Jinjiang Park, Yi Huanyan sat on the sofa in the living room to rest. Looking at the big and small bags on the floor, she revealed a rare smile. Ling followed behind him with a parcel in her hand. "Miss Yi, the delivery you just received is from the same city. It seems to be a document." Yi Huanyan took the package and glanced at it. After opening it, she rubbed the concert ticket. "Miss Yi, should we put these things in the nursery first?" Ling squatted on the ground and counted the things she had bought today. Yi Huanyan glanced at it and picked up a bag. "Keep this. Send the rest to the nursery." Ling was slightly stunned. "This, your size?" Yi Huanyan added. She stuffed the bag into Ling's hands and stood up. "Don't tell me you don't want it. You like it so much. It's so nice to have something you like." Ling's eyes turned red. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "Miss Yi, why are you so nice to me?" Yi Huanyan saw that she was crying for no reason. She was at a loss. She quickly pulled out a tissue and wiped her tears. "This is being nice to you? Don't cry. It's just a dress." Ling cried even harder and shook her head. "I'm the youngest in my family. All my clothes were left behind by my sister. This is the first time someone has bought me new clothes. It's so expensive. Miss Yi, you're so nice to me." Yi Huanyan was a little flustered. She didn't lack money, so she didn't know what this dress meant to Ling. However, she knew that Ling had too many siblings. Her father was bedridden all year round. Even though she earned a high salary as a nanny, she still couldn't make up for the huge hole in her family. After so many years, this was probably the first time she had received new clothes from someone else. Thinking of this, she only felt sorry for Ling. Ling was only 19 years old. She was still a child. When she fainted in the shower in this house and was sent to the hospital, She was the one who saved her life. After that, Lingling took good care of her. Although she was a servant, she was like a sister to her. Don't cry, Sai. Yi Huanyan comforted her helplessly. Lingling choked on her sobs and couldn't stop crying. She looked at Yi Huanyan's face and thought of how she had suffered for the past 6 months. She felt wronged for her. Sob, sob, sob. What makes me sad is that you're always so nice to people. You always prepare what others like. Miss G, Chief Editor Su and Young Master. But who knows what you like? Yi Huanyan's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. That's right. Who really knew what they liked? Seeing Yi Huanyan's gloomy face, Lingling tried her best to control her crying. After sobbing a few times, she touched Yi Huanyan's hand. Miss Yi, don't be sad. God will definitely leave the best for you. That's what my family says. Kindness will definitely be rewarded. Just like now. The little girl in your belly will definitely be very cute and considerate. At the mention of the baby, Yi Huanyan's expression improved. She smiled gently and patted the back of Lingling's hand. Then I'll count on your auspicious words. I think my little baby will definitely be very healthy. As for the things you like, it's fine. I don't really like many things. Her smile was too bitter. For a moment, Lingling would rather see her cry. But she didn't. She leaned over and stuffed the concert tickets on the coffee table into her hands. Lingling, do me a favor. It's Su Nianhua's concert in 2 days. You should know Su Nianhua. Girls your age should really like him. Can you go and take a look for me? Lingling didn't react for a moment. She was stunned. She sniffled and said blankly, Miss Yi, why don't you go yourself? It won't be very convenient for me. Yi Huanyan touched her belly and smiled. There will be too many people at the concert. Be careful when you go. Take more photos and show them to me when you come back. She knew that Su Nianhua was a thorn in Ling Han's side. Because of Su Nianhua, she had already made Ling Han furious many times. It was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Lingling held the 2,000+ tickets and stood rooted to the ground. When she lowered her head and saw the expensive dress in her hand, tears welled up in her eyes again. She had been here for half a year and knew what kind of person Yi Huanyan was. She still couldn't understand why the young master kept hurting a woman who loved him so much. Chapter 246. At the end of the month, Yi Huanyan, who was 5 months pregnant, had a bulge in her lower abdomen. After the morning sickness ended, her limbs began to swell, and she was very sleepy. She was extremely afraid of the cold. Originally, she liked to go out all day long, but she hadn't left the house in Jinjiang Court for more than half a month. She spent almost 20 hours in bed every day. When she woke up, she would bask in the sun on the balcony. Occasionally, she would see Ling Ling hurriedly put away the newspaper, but she still couldn't avoid seeing the dazzling news. The gossip always said that Xing Imran and Ling Han's wedding date was approaching, and they had no intention of clarifying it at all. They could always be seen together at banquets, commercial performances, award ceremonies, or other activities of all sizes. After seeing more, her heart gradually became numb. At the beginning of the next month, Su Nianhua's first official national concert tour, the first stop of the year's like water concert tour, began in Lanjiang City. After Ling Ling changed her clothes, she was still a little worried. Miss Yi, I'm going out like this. Are you sure you're okay at home alone? How about I don't go? Yi Huanyan stood at the entrance with her hands on her waist and blinked at Ling Ling. But the concert ticket can't be refunded. It's 2,800 yuan. Do you want to waste it? At the mention of the 2,800 tickets, Ling Ling looked pained. After taking a deep breath, she finally calmed down. I'll go. I've never been to a concert in my life. Yi Huanyan smiled and straightened her collar. You've only lived for 19 years. It's still a long time. When she was 19 years old, she couldn't see the future, but she was fearless. Now, it seemed that she could see the end of her life at a glance. When sending Ling Ling out, Yi Huanyan looked up at the sunset that dyed half the sky red. It was very beautiful. She suddenly remembered that she hadn't been out for a long time. So she took a coat and walked step by step along the road in front of Jinjiang Court to the community garden. The garden in Jinjiang Court was very beautiful. Yi Huanyan looked at the swing on the sandpit and touched her lower abdomen. When the baby was born in the future, it should like the swing very much. As she thought about it, she sat on the swing until night fell. The night breeze blew gently on his face. It was rare that he did not feel cold. He let the swing back and forth as he waited for the bright moon to rise high in the sky. On the other side, at the beginning of the night, at the Lanjiang City Stadium, after the opening dance, the scene was like a tsunami, and the light sticks were waved into a sea of light. Brother Hua, Brother Hua. Brother Hua, Brother Hua. Su Nianhua had a large number of fans to begin with. After signing with Pleasure, he did a good job of promoting himself and appeared on many variety shows. He even directly entered the mainland market. His concert tickets were sold out within 15 minutes. Such a concert scene was unique in the country at present. The crazy enthusiasm of the fans under the stage directly raised the atmosphere to a blazing hot, and there was no need for any entertainment program to warm up the scene. Xiaomu transferred the live video to the president's office. This was Su Nianhua's first concert after signing with Pleasure, and it was also the first concert organized by Pleasure. All the details of the scene needed to be carefully studied when they went back. Halfway through the concert, it was time to interact with the fans. The elevator in the middle of the stage slowly sent Su Nianhua, who was dressed in a luxurious suit, onto the stage. He raised his hand and made a gesture of silence. The cheers under the stage gradually quieted down. This is the first stop of my first nationwide concert tour, after officially returning to the country. I thank the fans for their company all these years, and I also thank the people I love, and the people who love me by my side. The lights in the venue flickered, and many fans began to choke with sobs. Before the concert, I read the messages that the fans left for me. I also read many letters that the fans wrote to me. Forgive me for not reading all of them. But from the letters that I read, I could see how much you cared about me. All these years, when I was fighting alone in a foreign country, the ones who supported me all the way were all of you. You were all the people I loved and loved me. He obeyed his family's arrangement and went abroad to study at the age of 17. He only studied for a year before giving up his studies and starting his career as a songwriter. No one knew the difficult process. My earliest fans should have started 6 years ago, right? He smiled gently and looked at the fans in the front row, asking seriously, "Is that so?" The fans under the stage were in high spirits, and they all shouted at once, "Yes, the song. Do you know I'm waiting for you?" Su Nianhua's eyes were gentle, and he nodded. "Yes, my earliest fans should have known me because of the song. Do you know I'm waiting for you? That has been popular on the internet for a while. I wrote that song for a friend when I was 17 years old. 10 years ago, she promised me that she would buy the front row seat on my first nationwide concert tour to listen to my concert." The fans were in an uproar. The song, "Do You Know I'm Waiting for You," was obviously a love song. Even a fool would know that it was not written for a friend. Since Su Nianhua's debut, it seemed that he had never talked about his personal feelings so seriously in public. Just the feelings of youth, coupled with that song, sounded very touching. Most of the fans were emotional. After listening to the past behind the song, they were naturally moved. Su Nianhua's deep voice echoed throughout the venue. But due to various reasons, maybe she won't be here today. My friend has been in a bad mood recently because of some things. I want to connect live and sing this song for her to cheer her up, okay? Okay. Brother Hua, we support you. The fans' shouts drowned out Su Nianhua's last sentence. I want her to know that there are still people in this world waiting for her. When he answered the phone, Yi Huanyan was still leaning on the swing chair. The bright moon shone on her body, and it was a little cold. The phone's ringtone was a little abrupt in the night. When it rang in her pocket, she was startled. When she saw the caller ID, she was surprised. After she picked up the phone, she asked carefully, "Hello? It's me." Su Nianhua's gentle voice made Yi Huanyan feel a little relieved. She wondered, "Aren't you supposed to be at the concert? How come you have time to call me? Since you know it's my concert, why didn't you come?" I. Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. She didn't know how to explain. Shoo. The voice on the phone was as gentle as a cup of warm water. Listen. As soon as he finished speaking, before Yi Huanyan could react, there was a tsunami-like sound coming from the phone. It was very neat, as if they had been specially trained. Do you know that I'm waiting for you? It was followed by the sound of a prelude melody. Su Nianhua's gentle voice was like a warm spring breeze on the other end of the phone. It brushed past her ears and made her feel comfortable. The lyrics were changed, and the tenderness became encouragement. On a sunny day, I left the smile in your eyes, so when the storm comes, I want to return it to you. That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.